哦，这样子 ，OK。
Hello， 大家好，欢迎收看White玩游戏。我们今天呢又要来打这一周的 VTL。说好打完大赛就可以退坑的呢，并没有，不给退坑啊！这太无情了，太过分了。哎，然后这一周的 VTL 呢，是我的队伍 BWD 对上芊芊的队伍喜翠托哥德马尔 HST。那我这一周要打的对手呢，是以前的伙伴，就是我们第2次那个白龙骑士团拿下冠军的那个队伍的队员维伦。那维伦他也是就是在我们圈子也是蛮有名的 VGC 玩家，他的最经典的代表就是他都会用那个采影灭歌，采影灭歌战术，直接把你定到死。我们的灭歌维伦，那这一次我不知道维伦要用什么队伍来搞我，怕啦。然后因为我其实才刚睡醒，我们原本是约9点啊，我睡到快要8点半才起来，所以就有点比较晚开台，有点对不起维伦。然后我原本是那个主机可能来不及了，但我刚刚勉强赶快把队伍拉出来，所以现在我们要来进行连线。为了我们连线密码就用那个拿坡里08007666，
那08007666，好。哎，你有下载系列12规则？
我有，我上次跟有亮打的时候才载。
OK。
什么？我队员说队长加油，这样我就可以去送头了。不是队长，我想躺分啊，我可以躺吗？我想退坑啊，让我退坑。先等等。我按错了，我按到交给其他人。你
哦，那我看一下好了。我看，
如果不行的话，我们再重练一次。
12嘛，对不对？
啊，对，有吗？你有吗？没有的话，
好像有。有。
好，
你看一下是不是这个？应该是。
好。那这个就是我今天要用的队伍。
你到底要用啥啦？
嘿嘿。
打开一看，
哇，这不是，这不是。
哎呀，怎么办？我觉得我们好像在打 EUIC 哦，这个
啊，这是 EUIC 啊。
等一下，你这个，
我思考哦。
要思考。
你好难打哦。你知道我要怎么办啊？
我不知道我要怎么办，我现在很慌，你知道吗？
我才慌吧。
主要是我这队也用不多。
思考一下。
好，这样选出，应该只有这个选出。等下打一把，我再来看还有什么选。
我死定了！小易，你给我滚出来！这队伍是不是跟你的87压像？小易，我知道你在。这小易的队伍对不对？之前那个，
我是那个的，就是撸人家很多 INC 上位都这个队伍。
啊，我好痛苦哦，痛苦无比耶，好烦哦。臭小易，
我喜欢这个手上。有没有保护？
哇！我要冲了，急剧，哪次不急剧？我的 White Cocoa 在这只白冰龙的里面。这给你，然后这个我抗。
哇，今天我看刚果，我的天啊！我还以为是背心还是内衣啥？
你这要害？
没有要害，
不是，没有要害，那就表示你是靠腰哦。
这个不是双浪的，我读的时候才知道它是固执。没有要害哦，这情报好大。靠，这情报超大，
这样不就死了吗？我是算双狼顶攻可以血耐的耶。
这个固执加236我弄的。
固执236也太痛了吧！
等下我猜按照投降一下。
这样怎么打？这样人没啦。
你还是有顺风啊，还是可以的。
人没了。
先搞一发灭水。所以你这个是调到可以稳吃双浪的急攻是吧？
是。
我刚刚看到那个看刚果，心脏都跳出来，很可怕可
是我觉得应该是乱吧，我确定一下。
我不好意思乱，你可以算一下。
我算一下。
打个帮助那边。
打个帮助先。说攻236，
对，我看一下，我刚才拉 SD， 就是这一对 SD 要很大，有吗？这乱吗？
看一下，没有，这把我要投了。我先按投降，怎么打？好了，看来队长可以继续躺分了，我还是交给我的队员来打就好了。我可以退坑了吗？等我一下。
等一下，看刚果就代表还有保护这样我一开始的怀疑是对的。怎么办呢？下一把怎么办？这抢了一发，等我下一把走。
乱输一发，31.1%，运气不错嘛。
乱一完了，
气耶！
我想说，这个斩下去看果子好好看。Go！
等一下，刚刚芊打完了吗？芊打完了吗？芊有赢吗？你们队伍我看一下我先偷看一下成绩。
你看一下成绩啊，我也没看成绩有吗？我们成绩现在是怎么样？
我们现在3比1我们队伍3，然后你们那里
这样子。
可是芊赢了可恶。好吧，本来想说芊还在躺，那我也可以继续躺。可恶，不给躺吗？
加油啊，队长，加油！然后带着队员好好的向前冲。
没有，我这一季只想躺而已，让我躺。好烦哦，思考一下。 他打我会乱一的话，变成我应该要这样了，是不是？这麻烦耶。
我不是去的是乱的，好烦哦。那时候不是去了。
我那个是爽朗加252A 可以确耐的话，我就想要固执应该不会到确才对。
对啊，应该是不会到确。只是刚刚那一刀他好给力啊！对啊，谢谢他。来看一下，
对，直接炸开，我想的是要害。
可恶！你刚才投了，我什么情报都没看到。
我只给你看到一个帮助而已。
没错。什么都不知道。
思考一下。
晴天，
我直接抓你灭水。我以为是仓想那个位置进火猫，然后加灭水。
哦，我是觉得你可能要顺风或者是帮助什么巨兽斩之类的。
对啊，所以我觉得你要么直接冲灭水，要不然就是马威加巨兽斩吧。怎么会是这样？跟我想不太一样。
我想说先威胁一下仓想，我仓想先不要倒，因为你仓想一定会先斩我一刀。这帮我就会不好听。
这替身漂亮。
再来该怎么办呢？唉，
我才在想我该怎么办呢。思考一下。龟上来送进去。
龟怎么？这龟肯定送吧？你2只蜈蚣手一定要有威了吧？我是这样想。 大不了等下聚火嘛，我受不了。风花精是没保护是不是啊？
是。
那应该一开始就先马威把它弄掉，马威巨兽斩嘛，风花精打了应该就行。我就很怕一保护，你之前白龙那就保护。可以冲。
这里立马会派白，巨兽斩1by1，第一手抓你冲龟集聚，变成是帮你开了晴天。
哇哦，这个哦，你是对。第一手其实我就很单纯的是觉得不会防护巨兽斩手，我先保仓，这样，因为你一定比我先手。既然你都说你第一场是抓我会防到你，我觉得你的自己的肯定是很快的，而且你也看到我不会有马威，所以我觉得你点帮助斩一刀可能性很大。
好了，
加2一斩肯定接不下。
这样我就没解，GG。好啦，躺分躺起来，笑死！可是我觉得第一场还是在那个乱啊。
我觉得乱啊，
对，那个乱实在是太亏了。
确实，你那个抗钢果真的是害我吓一大跳。
因为没死的话，我是会抓你。不过你那个血，如果你是 A 的话，你应该血练不少。那苍翔应该是不会死，但至少我会拉到一个 D。然后下一个
你那个是却不掉苍翔的，是不是？
对啊，
我以为那个会去掉。
没有，它不是命运就去不掉。
不是命运去不掉。对。每次打到都打到命运。
没事做，守住巨兽斩。 变成第2场我应该要果断开顺风的。我
觉得要开顺风。
我刚刚先开顺的话，第2场会好打很多。因为我第2回合顺风开不出来。
对，我有抓你会不会保护？对，没有。说我是把我第 T1 的马位换掉，我想说 T2 来马位，因为我不知道你花姐要不要就
这样蛮合理的。只是我是直接抓你冲水龟几句，因为我想说，我开仓响的话，你应该会想要双冲吧？就你双冲，感觉你不亏。那这样的话，我巨就晴天减伤你的巨水，然后换人，这样我是想。
因为在我的视角来看的话，我觉得你对给我最大的压力就是那只风花精开顺，
是没错。
对，所以我会想说，那风花精如果我保护那里一定是保护，所以如果那里你被开到顺风，我换火包也是拖一回合顺风，那还可以接受。
是。第1回合，我也是觉得我第1回合顺风太亏，因为我原本的速线就比你高，所以我在一开始我没有想要直观的先开顺风，然后我也是觉得你应该会觉得我的速线是比你高的，所以你会想要直接就是用几句来反打嘛。不过你那样打也是比较合理，就你直接收，
因为我确定你那轮就是有办法保住你的顺风，我就想把战线再拉长一点，就是要把顺风回合拖掉，我才有一刀斩到那个白兵的可能性，不然被顺风开出来打个巨地，我那个长线。
我确定一下，那只火猫应该是抗帝国的吧？
不是，是抗德国的，
是抗德国的哈，所以我如果打帮助加那个圣剑也是不会死，抗德国还不错。
抗德国，但是刚拉队伍的时候，其实我一直想说你会在那个啥，就是因为不是一开始说用 SD 打嘛，
你说我会带我原本的那一组吗？
对，带原本那一组，我就想带抗帝，我就把它改抗帝了。但是现在这个是猪的，我是抗德国。
我觉得打那一组的话，我白龙那一组可能真的比较好打。好打蛮多的，
对，好打蛮多的。
水龟会被海兔锁的，所以你水龟不会太好做事，
会抓的死死，就是会打的游来游往。
对啊，我也觉得你应该会来针对这一组，所以我才想说，那我出一下别的东西来玩玩。
我就很喜欢杰尼龟跟电柱啊。
好哦，这一组真的是蛮强的啦，就是尾盘那个黑骑士在进场收头能力很强，然后。我没想到他的仓响是练坦的，就是加 A 的仓响。
哦，有派系的啦。一般这种组的仓响，一般加 S 比较多。
对啊，小易的是，
我会把你实况开起来嘛，我看一下大家留言在说什么。
开啊，你开。
我现在开一下。
看。
哦，你有开延迟是吧？
我没有开延迟。
没有开延迟，我现在一开马上就是声音马上音画不同步，笑死！我自己网路烂。
他自己原本就大概会有1-2分，大概1分钟左右的延迟吧，不确定。
然后我想说一开马上音画不同。
这一组其实我在这次大赛之前我也练了蛮多。这一组其实是我们队员一开始组的6支啊。是我们队员一位就是黑米组的 KMM 他组的队伍，其实我觉得还不错，然后我就自己拿来玩了不少场，然后我想一下，因为我之前一直都是就是抗刚的白兵去耐各种巨兽斩啊，还有像索尔的那个弱阵点火丸的巨刚，我是吃得下来的，所以你刚刚那个巨兽斩直接把我切掉，我直接就想到靠，要是要害了。就没有是31%乱。
我以为是要害，因为我看果跳到位的
固执仓想做坏了啦，这比索尔还要痛我算一下索尔顶攻的，等我一下。
我记得我们之前是打小易杯还是打什么？就是
小易杯啊，小易杯。
是不是也是固执仓想？你也是那个？
对，因为就是通常我是算爽朗的顶攻，固执的顶攻。我真的比较没有去算，可是要算到耐固执的顶攻，你那个防御投资 就算是极限，好像也是没有办法确耐的样子。你只能让它超低乱的样子。播报埃塞 Top Cup 吗？可以啊，等一下好了，我看一下现在在打第几轮。等我一下，我算一下那个，VTL 都 Live 集聚加2抗钢。对啊，我跟你讲，索尔若正跳起来的集聚钢，我是确242，他最多只能打71%而已。靠腰，那苍响是做坏啦，
苍响是做坏啦，
苍响是做坏啦。加2A 的索尔加雷欧的巨钢打在我的抗钢白冰龙身上，最多71%。然后爽朗的巨兽斩加1。就是进场加1A 的巨兽斩爽朗打最多是97%，然后固执的苍响最多就是104%了，完全就是做坏。我看一下我有没有办法把那个把白冰改成固执顶攻也是。
我苍响做坏的牺牲的条件就是他不能集聚，就没有办法。
他还可以集聚，就真的太过分了，这太过分了。
他没有那个血线可以留在场上，他就是。有点像玻璃大炮这种感觉吧，就
玻璃
他没有办法
吗？
他没有办法。你要说他有耐久也有耐久，但是在我理解里面，那苍响在几句话环境里面是被那些神
看一下，
真的是也没有黑马王那么那个，黑马王真的是耐久
可以。如果硬要调到要确耐固执的话，可以。防御要再多一点，现在防御是101，防御拉到108才是确耐固执的巨兽斩。没有，这是爽嘛？算点错了，等我一下，点错了。
那我们这个战绩是怎么样？
战绩现在你们是2胜3败啊，你们2胜，我们，等一下你们2胜，我们3胜啊，我看一下，应该是这样吧。输一下，对，太好了，我这一季可以躺到底。
祝我们这队加油一下。
没有，我让我们赢一下。虽然我输了，但是我还是要打掉这个该死的托哥的马尔，一拳一托哥的马尔，揍芊芊。我看一下对
啊，明天还有一天，应该大家很多都明天打。
我还在算要拉到多少才确耐，不行啊！要确耐的话，防御要拉到119，现在是101，119的话，我等于特攻就全部都没有了。你就算确耐，也会变成你打谁都打不死。
那也不行。
对啊，顶多就只能乱。其实那个31%就已经算是低乱了。直接被抽高就是真的直接下去，不然就是我。可是因为我刚刚集聚手，你看这一队的集聚手，你现在在看我的荧幕吗？集聚手就白冰，
荧幕是白
冰土云加喷，然后我开土跟喷都会被水龟压到。
等一下我看一下，你这个我还没看到。
所以我第一把开白冰应该是没有问题的，白冰封妖是没有问题，因为我是觉得，
我现在看到了。
对啊，
集聚手就这3个嘛。
对，
白冰土云喷嘛。
对啊，我总不能走封妖跟月步的集聚嘛。所以我刚刚第一把不管是开土跟喷都会有问题啊，因为那个水龟压在旁边，土跟喷都没办法做事。然后开白冰的话，耐住刚刚的那个巨兽斩， 才有机会。耐住的话，我会得到一只加一滴的白冰，然后苍响会残。对，之后再想办法逆境。
对，因为水龟压上来，苍响水龟压上来之后，你好像开谁都，
而且整体上还是很被动，因为其实你还是有一个可能会有雷柱的选项。
对，
然后加上
这个是很帅的背心雷柱
我知道小易说背心雷柱是邪魔歪道，其实我觉得还好，因为你是背心雷柱的话，应该是务工吧？
务工的，
对，有飞跳那种，然后雷就是带一个电网嘛，然后再加
电网跟
福特，
就加一个大威力的那个，对，
狂野福特啦，疯狂福特，
疯狂福特
是，
我觉得用起来很舒服啊，怎么会是邪魔歪道？
我也觉得。那我想一下你有带那个吗？欺压，再度欺压。
什么欺压？
再度欺压，就邪恶气的雷柱。
有啊，
有，就是必要的时候可以打一个巨2加心碎。
对啊，那个是，
我也觉得是一种
也不是必要的时候吧，
蛮常这样打的，蛮常
那个会，通常冲一段之后，如果对面都没什么鬼抗，打这个会赢，我就会直接点啊。直接无脑开始巨2加那个心碎拼 A， 巨2心碎啊，那个反正就这样打会赢，就这样点就好了。
我也觉得那个在就是真的是没办法阻止啊。你看，就算我开了土云，然后你开雷柱，然后加黑旗，然后你巨2心碎过来，我真的也是很受不了。就算你第一回合掉雷柱，第二回合我土云还是那个要继续吃心碎的伤害。
要吃一发心碎，
对啊，而且你再补一个苍响进来，我就会很不舒服。
我会没有开电柱，也是因为我想要有一个马威去控风妖，因为那个风妖真的是
这一场的风妖刚好是没有带手的，就是
我就一直在赌这个风妖要不要手，就只是在赌这个。
我想一下
不过乔雷姆有没有手啊？
乔雷姆有手、啊，
白冰有没有手？
白冰有手。
乔雷姆有手。因为我第一场的 T1 是想说你会不会双手还杀人，我想说先开风妖斩乔雷姆一刀。其实我没有想说有一个选项是拍风妖，然后巨兽斩风妖。
但你这样就会吃距离。其实我反而希望你那样打。因为你那样打的话，我白兵还是你会没有我是抗刚的情报，然后我白兵会拉一滴，然后等一下你还是会不太好做事，然后我旁边的苍响可以进来，然后接下来就要猜拳。
那个巨兽斩那刀砍到白兵身上也是无意间的操作，因为在犹豫，在想会不会抓个手足。
对啊，不过想一想，
因为你也在猜水龟有没有马威的。
水龟我是觉得一定会有马威啦，但是，我本来是想说那个你有可能会去马威白兵的位置，那你马威风妖的话，至少我白兵就可以输出到，然后那个嘛，反正接下来再看情况。不过也没办法，就这样吧。
就这样。
队形上是稍微有点被动了。对啊，我们可以
看 IC 赛，
可以来看 IC。现在 IC 打到哪里了？
不知道我可以用你这个看了，就是
看看哦，
用你的实况台看。
可是他们这一次好像是只有开 Twitch 的，对不对？但我要开 Twitch。没
有，那个 YouTube 有。
YouTube 有吗？我找一下。
在英文的官方频道。
OK 吗？UIC。
打 Top 卡的
wasted turn for the Blastoise as well.
刚好来看
And didn't get to do anything. Really nicely done by Joe to identify the Electro Web. Will push that Eviltal into a position where, you know what, it can go first. A big foul play, which, you know, after you get yourself a boost on the way in, yeah, it's not very effective, but it is punishing. It's still a very high attack that you're dealing with, and that's huge from the Eviltal, being able to take out one of the restricteds, you know, just taking a tiny bit of damage done through it. That's it. I mean, that's all that's on the board for Joe, damage-wise, and Javier's got a whole lot of work to do. Is going to have to look for a Dynamax option. It has to be, it's going to be Dynamax over on Joe's side. I think Javier has to look for a Dynamax option too, because otherwise you're going to fall way behind the pace here.
That Dialga is looking like a pretty good Dynamax candidate for Javier, and that's exactly what we are going to see. But the Yveltal choice for Joe makes so much sense in this case, because not only do you have the Electro Web speed drops already on that Blastoise, but the Yveltal can just start pushing out so much damage, whether it is from a Dark Aura boosted Max Darkness, or you can continue to boost your speed with those Max Airstreams as well. Blastoise is going to try one more time to get this helping hand onto this Dialga, but another Electro Web will knock out this Blastoise and will also drop the speed of this Dialga, so let's see what this Yveltal can do.
This Yveltal is going to have to go right. He's going to be going next. He's going to be able to just throw the damage down onto this Dialga. The Max Darkness coming through here. Not going to be enough for a knockout, but a huge amount of damage onto the opposing Dynamax Pokemon. Time to see how much Dialga can do with that helping hand. Fire back. Going after a Max Steel Spike here, trying to boost its defenses, but it's still not close to a knockout. And I think, you know, with the speed drops coming through as well from these consistent Electro Webs, Joe is in such a commanding position. What can Javier bring that can deal with this? If it's the Rillaboom, okay, you do get to start using priority, but don't forget, Oblivion Wing. That's going to become Max Airstream. That's going to absolutely deal with you. I don't even know how close you get with a grassy glide. It's going to be a push. It's going to be tough. Yeah, you could probably deal with a Regieleki that way, but then you're leaving Yveltal to just start going after you.
And unfortunately as well, you're not getting any extra benefit onto that Rillaboom because of how slow that Dialga is. Rillaboom just going to go for a protect. You really want to try to wait out some of these Dynamax turns. Regieleki also just continuing to fire away these Electro Webs. It's been putting inconsistent damage, bringing this Dialga so low. And now Joe's Yveltal gets a chance to go for another Darkness, and that's going to go right into the Dialga. It is just the Rillaboom now left for Javier in this game too.
Yeah, Javier must know at this point that his time is up. And Joe probably feeling super confident that whatever he's got in the back, his ability to deal with the Rillaboom. And look at the options, right? That's going to be able to deal with it. Venusaur, you're not really going to be able to do enough damage to the Venusaur. So, yeah, you're going to have to deal with that. And, of course, the potential Incineroar as well. So, Joe, a commanding game too. Really showing a complete understanding of this team, bringing the Incineroar just to land the Intimidate, really making sure there is no sneaky path back in for Javier in this one. The Grassy Glide
整体看下来 ，Joseph 只要解掉他的苍响，其实歪鸟对方几乎没有办法阻止。
Airstream in retaliation seals this set 2-0 for Joe Ugarte. A way different game in game 2 than we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, very commanding game number 2 here for Joe. Clearly knew what the game plan should be coming into this second game, and what a great way to kick off our top 8. What a phenomenal match!
It was a really good match, and
所以 Joseph 4强确定
，4强确定，
loses that Blastoise turn
这
one.
很
That is
强
a disastrous opener. But he fought back so valiantly. And it looked for a while he was in the driving seat. Then it turned very quickly into Joe's game, where Joe got that end game position and was just able to control the game from there and just say, well, you can't knock everything out. It's a combination of, you know, you don't have spread moves, you don't have single targets. You went for it with the Roar of Time and fell short, which I remember in 2010 learning how Roar of Time worked the hard way. So this is a good lesson for Javier to take and figure it out. But so close. Fantastic run, obviously, you know, you can't take anything away from that.
也是啦，
But then in game
有睡粉
2,
就不无辜
Joe
了。
just downloaded him entirely.
我
Made
是
some
蛮
changes.
喜
Didn't
欢
even have to
晴天
go
队
after the Blastoise, but the
晴
Blastoise
天的
still
问题就是
accomplished
会不会
very,
卖
very
啊？每一
little.
个招
And
式
I
都有会
really
卖
do
的可能。
think this was just a bad matchup for that Pokemon.
这一组我刚才用的那一组也算是半个晴天队啊，因为凤妖有手琴，对，
有手琴也是吓到我。
Yeah.
我想一下，我刚刚也许应该要喷火龙加蜂妖开的。 如果有手琴，我可以去阻止你的那个灭水的伤害。
Yeah, sometimes you hit that matchup in top 8, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. You know, you want to avoid it.
也许喷加蜂妖开是
It's
个
not
选
always how it
项。
goes, and it's tough to
这是一
see.
个选项，然后我
You
这
know,
边的
if
打
I
法
go
就
out
变
in
成我要
2
去水，然
games
后
like that, we always
用
want
那
the 3. We
个
always
效
want to see
果
more
去
great
拖慢整
Pokemon.
个游戏的节奏
But。Joe did put on a clinic in game 2, and I think that's fair to shout him out for that and say, Joe, you had an absolute blinder in that game, and that's got to feel good going into top 4.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and find out from him. Let's have it to the main stage and have that interview.
比赛跟比赛之间会很久吗？
Thank you so much, Adam and
我不确定
Rosemary.
哎，
Fantastic job you're doing
刚好
over there on the desk. I
看，
am
不
here
然我们
with
可以就
our
看
top
完
8.
这一场
First
就好。
winner, Joe. How are you feeling after that match?
I'm feeling great.
看
You
你
know,
看
I
你
came
啊，
in
因为
here
我
and I
都没
really
怎
wanted
么
to
试，
like
今天
not
就给你打
prove to
了。
anyone else, but to prove to myself that I could do it.
如
And
果
like
怕你
I
吃到
know in
连
this
线流
format
量
I'm
的
very
话
strong, so I'm
看
不会
like
不会
just
不会不
super
会不会，
invested
我
and
都
like
我
I
都
really
好
just
准。
want to show that hard work pays off.
那我
Yeah,
们
well,
可以
it's
再等
definitely
一
showing
场。
off right now. I know you've been on
我
stream
觉
a
得可以
couple of
看
times
完吧，
already
如
over the
果
weekend.
都那个的话。
Haven't had the
好不好
the
看？
best
因为要
results
看
that you
完。
probably want in
看
those
完的
situations.
话，
So
他们现在
was there
8
any
强
kind
每
of
一组都
nerves?
转
Like,
播
I'm，imagining there
看
would
完
be a
可
lot
能
of
会有
nerves
点
coming，
我
onto
大
the stream
概
against
哦，每一组都会
the
转
stage of the
播。
tournament.
他们应该是每一
Kind
组
of
都会转
yes.
播
I
的。
think I said this quote to someone I played versus, and it's a quote
看
I
完
think
我
about
觉
a
得会
lot.
有点
It's
晚
you know,
顶多看
losing is
个1-2
learning
场
and。winning is teaching, right? So when I lose the game, I try and just take the lessons from it, what I could have done better, maybe how could I have approached the game differently, and I try to not let those losses impact my next couple of games because in the end, right, you can't let it kind of psych you out, I guess. And going into this match, I was like, clean
他
slate,
的
we're
突
in top
破
8,
口
and like
看
this
起
is
来 还
my tournament
是
to win, I'm
只能在
gonna
长
go for
响
it.
身
So.
上，
Such
但
an
是
amazing way to
你要顾
approach
库拉
every
多要
match.
顾
I think a
火
really
猫
good，example for
我觉得很
those new
难。
players at home kind of watching, taking examples from players like yourself who are progressing so well through this tournament. The one thing I've been wanting to ask you all day is about your team composition. You know, we have seen a couple of Yveltals, but we haven't seen too many of them, but performing extremely well as we go deeper into this tournament. And was that the you know, what was your thinking behind bringing it to this event?
Yeah, so you might have noticed too, just like on stream or in general in the tournament, there were a lot of Calyrex Shadows and a lot of Lunala running around, and I was kind of aware of this before the tournament as well, so I kind of had an idea of like what I wanted to build around. And I still wanted something that was going to be positive in the sun, or at least gave me a good chance to beat it, because that's a very popular archetype right now. So I wanted to pick an option and kind of let me beat all of those, and then the losing matchups or like the harder matchups aren't really too common in the format. So this ended up being the perfect fit for me. I've used this archetype before in other formats.
水龟加瓦斯，对方
Joseph
刚刚是有花嘛，然后也有电柱对方，
Yeah, and
有花有电柱，然后歪鸟也可以打咆哮。就算打水龟加瓦斯，你的输出水龟的输出也是出不来，顶多只能抓掉固拉多和火猫。可是抓掉看固拉多和火猫，你就有机会让苍响进场。
How are you feeling in that moment when you kind of saw that payoff?
Yeah, like it feels really good when you make a correct play. Always, you know. I also too made sure that I really thought about what I was going to do before the match. And you know, after game 1, Yveltal was a bit better at exerting that pressure I needed, especially because the output was in the back. So I felt really good, especially after that turn 1 play removing Zacian immediately. Like I felt like I was in a really good position to win the game from there.
Yeah, amazing.
他打到8强也是很强，打到8强也是要突破第1天，然后第2天的瑞士轮。不过我昨天才知道他们的 IC 的瑞士轮第1、第2天是那个战绩是会算在一起。
哦，瑞士轮算一起。
瑞士轮算，他们 Day 2的瑞士轮，他们不会再重新开一个，会延续 Day 1的战绩。
这样好硬哦，
这样是真的很硬。
世界赛的话是只有
世界赛因为 Day 2会有那个中职选手加进来，所以 Day 2会重启一个。
Joe Ugarte going to be moving on to our top 4 here at the Europe International Championships. But we still have one more top 8 match to go to figure out who else is going to be joining him in the top 4.
We want to see some more fantastic matches. I want 3 matches this time. I'll say it. I want 3 matches. I want a full set. I want it to be really, really close. And I think we may be getting it with the team that we're featuring, watching his run throughout the tournament. I think some of these games definitely go the distance. And I want to see just how this team keeps on playing. So really, really excited to do a little bit more top 8 action. I know top 4 is already getting close to complete, but we're going to feature a little bit more. We want to show off some more of these players and showcase some more of these teams as well.
如果要把白冰的防拉到119的话，他的特攻就只能到207了。特攻会有点低啊。
But this is such a big
可是我觉得不能缺奈的话，
take a look at our top 8, it's
就没什么意义了。
You know, across the board, we talked about kind of where these players come
活下来比
from.
有输出
Mostly
还要
Europe,
重要的感
predominantly
觉。
Europe, and that's exactly
像我刚刚那个第一把有
what
活下
they
来
want into the Europe
战
International
局才会改变。
Championships.
那个
But
直接被
now
确掉就是什
Joe,
么都
the
没有。
sole United States
直接被
player
乱掉就
who's
什么
your
都
top
没有。
cut.
Yeah, the only one representing a
想一
region
下
other than Europe. There's also a bit of a intercontinental battle going on as well. I know in
也是没有
history
错
growing
啦
through the VGC,
威赫的话变成
there
我
have
第
been
一
different
手要
regions who
进
dominate at different
土
times
云
for a while.
再加
It
巨
was
巨。
Germany. Personally, I wouldn't go to German events because I knew I wasn't going to stand a chance.
这样子看起来也蛮尴尬的，因为第2回合会变成我没有控速手段，然后苍响不会死，然后土云的位置也是在会被确的射程，然后我白兵聚起来，第2个回合又要再开一个巨手去拖回。
We're kind of coming back in a clean slate, if you will.
我还是觉得第1回合看到的
step up and say we're the best country in Europe at this.
要不然就是我要把那个蜂妖的帮助拆掉。因为这只白兵是抗刚，所以我才带蜂妖带帮助。他那个不是命运的输出是不够的。
It also has to do with just the rotating formats
但是我
that
觉
we've
得为了要
had, the
活下来
different formats that we have played
那个双保护
VGC
第一
in.
回合
But Series 12 has brought so many unique perspectives to the game when it comes to the restricted pairs that you can put together, and also we are seeing so many different approaches to how players want to take control of speed, whether that's do something really fast like a prankster tailwind, but a lot of players are also playing things that are a bit more balanced, and so maybe they have to rely on some type of Dynamax to be able to help control the speed in their favor. And then also we've seen some Trick Room, and that's been a bit more popular today.
Series 12 is definitely a rich and interesting format. There's so much to think about. There's so many choices that you have to make across the board. Just the team process alone is exciting enough, and when you get into the gameplay, then you've got a whole nother level of thought that you have to put into it. So as a format that's here to stay, I'm glad it's this one. I think there's some very clear contenders at best teams, but you can make arguments for so many teams, and now we've got 3-4 months to grow and really nurture this format. I think we're going to get some of the best play possible come the North American International Championships, come the World Championships as well. That in mind, we've got some players ready up on the stage for you. You're going to recognize these players from over the course of the weekend. We did feature Alex Delapaska in his way in to top 8, and then his opponent Victor Medina as well has been featured over on the stream with a couple of really cool teams between the two of them. Victor, if you remember, with that unique double weather team that doesn't have a ground on, uses the Torkoal, and his definition after his game was really entertaining, where he just said, yeah, I just don't like ground on. And then totally fair. Who am I to argue? And then, you know, talking to Alex after his game, the last round of Swiss, he just wanted to have fun with it. His team's so unique, and he said, I have to play a team that I made or else I'm absolutely stuck. And his team is, I think unique is an understatement.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of the teams that each of these players are running, but let's tell you a little bit more about the players themselves. We've got Victor Medina, a Spanish player who got top 32 at Liverpool, and so they definitely have that competitive experience in Series 12 coming into the Europe International Championships, and they were also top 8 in Worlds in 2018 in the seniors division, so that's definitely something that they want to get back to and coming up to this upcoming World Championships. On the other side of things as well,
要看一下他们那个，
看一下聊天室
有没有讨论。
They went 5-3 at Liverpool, so they were both at the same event. And he's also running the same team that he brought to the Liverpool regionals. And Alex also just secured his Worlds invite with his placement so far in the European International Championships. He's not even done yet.
Yeah, he's got more to go and could go all the way. He did say when I was talking to him, just wants to have some fun with it. And if he's going to do that, playing the team that he crafted and he built is probably one of the best ways to do it. So I'll be excited to see just how far he can take his own creation, which I think it's fair to say is maybe the most unique team in top 8. I don't know if he shares a Pokemon with anyone else. When we look at the team in full,
你说这一组对局吗？
应该是吧，因为这个画面我都有延迟啊，我看聊天室。
I think we still have a
这个画面。
Oh, it is the Gastrodon.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a
Gastrodon show with some of these teams being featured in our top 8. I know that Eric Rios is rocking that Sun team, so the Gastrodon is definitely a shared component of that. But everything else, if you want to just do a bit more of a deep dive, I mean, Alex is running that Ice Rider Calyrex with that Gastrodon, which we've spoken a little bit about the uniquenesses of that Gastrodon on this particular team. And of course,
刚好我们开起来看的时候有白龙可以看，太好了，
太好了，这样子太好。
A bit of a head scratcher when you're taking a look at
是白龙白
旗。restricted Pokemon we have seen so far.
Yeah, it's definitely.
这是韩冰说的。盖亚、马、龙纠缠不清的关系。他一开始还跟我说想要一起组这个队伍，而组一组，一开始觉得也还算不错。 但会有一些问题，就是弯鸟就很难打，弯鸟头痛到爆开，看弯鸟真的头很痛。歪鸟仓或刚刚那个歪鸟固也不是非常好打，然后还有黑旗仓也是不舒服。
会大声咆哮的神兽。
你看那个它的构筑也是海兔。 也是必要的，然后你看它整体构筑大概跟韩冰的那个最后的版本，它韩冰这一次16强版本应该就只差了那一只，它是用Mimikyu吧，韩冰是用夜里。
哦，对，其实我现在被那个英文字幕挡住。
我刚看到他是布鲁菇跟Mimikyu啊。
哦，菇跟Mimikyu。
对。所以他这一组主要完全就是走空间头，白旗跟Mimikyu可以开空间，然后布鲁菇来抗水跟那个。
他下午用海兔打赢脱壳人，太强了吧！海兔是打得赢脱壳人的。
他是有加原始之力吧？还是他用 TOD 打赢的？他这样开的话，火猫是木质果或防尘吗？
已经要开场了，天哪，我都。我等一下再看。好，我现在才看到开场。
右边开火猫加妙蛙，然后左边开火猫加那个Mimikyu。
左边这个开是上一个赛季白马王标准开场。
这个是 miss， 他不是没有看到道具，但是他不马威妙蛙的话，我觉得应该是2个都有抗税的东西吧。
T1 已经打完了，是不是？
对，T1 那个妙蛙的碎粉卖了，然后左边的火猫比较快。 火猫马威拍火猫，然后空间开起来。
我现在在看 T1 发生的事。
然后 T2 他直接收妙蛙花进盖欧卡，火猫这里火推到对方的盖欧卡身上。
more oppressive and a little more offensive in place of that. The Incineroar, like nobody's going to activate.
右边的火猫打了一个狠话，转回去。
And I think this is a little audacious to try and stay in there because he's wasting trick room turns.
Yeah, ideally, you want to have something like that Ice Rider Calyrex or potentially.
右边是那个之前 S11赛季的时候常见的那个盖风龟花，然后挂了一个苍响，这样
他挂一个苍响，
就变得不一样的队伍了，就打进8强了。好简单的队伍哦。
这是我们亚裔师傅用的那个队吧？
是。 只是现在他有了一个苍响，
所以这个是寒冰打亚裔这样理解是吧？
Just because, yeah, you're going to get the boost as soon as that Kyogre throws out attacks. And the other thing as well, I mean, I think that's why the Venusaur comes back in from Victor, right? So he has an immediate answer to it.
我这边他再把
Zacian coming in,
苍响转进来，那这个回合火猫一定要狠化转走，不然火猫就要白给了。是。
Oh, the Incineroar's finally leaving. Good job, Incineroar.
哦，唤醒者推荐我看一下官方的，这样我就不会有延迟了。
哦，对你看，你直接看官方的就不会有延迟。
I mean, the parting shot's also pretty big to be able to mitigate that damage coming in from the Kyogre.
问题是这边
is going to have the rain all to itself, and now Alex with that parting shot can choose what goes into that slot. We haven't seen the reveal of
转谁进来都是要吃喷水或根源的伤害哦。
And this could be the time to really start.
哦，他刚刚抛走是吧？
对，
我想看他不见他在取。好，我就像这样。
狠化对该有卡点，然后。
We have also seen Alex in a few games be able to get that
选择进海兔，所以他海兔火猫咪咪 Q， 那不知道是没有带白龙还是没有带白旗，应该是没有带白旗。那对方盖欧卡也很聪明，知道对方有可能会转海兔进来，他就用动光。
A lot more manageable right now. I think it's fair to say.
主要还是想把这个空间回合脱掉。
对，空间回合脱掉，对方后手已知是妙蛙跟火猫。
如果让对手很舒服的用掉这个空间，
那左边 Alex 这里只不确定他 S 神带的是白龙还是白旗，我觉得应该要带白龙了。 因为白棋他自己没有看威吓的手段的话，你会很不舒服。哎，我怎么转圈了？
我转圈了，这是不是官方在搞？我也转圈了。
是官方在搞吧？因为我们连线很正常，所以应该。
哦，我重整之后就没有转。
哦，结果是白棋，所以他刚刚收咪咪 Q 上白棋。 但白棋这里就吃到了威吓。
你怎么那么快啊？什么？哎，真的哎！哇，画面一转，马上就是。
他应该是中间跳了一下。周期海兔的集聚。
Yeah, I mean Incineroar, Torkoal, the Zacian especially.
距离拉低，这样子 ，Alex 这边的变成是加1滴的海兔跟白棋，然后白棋应该是减1A， 然后对面的盖欧卡减1C。
Big in Dynamax form will be able to help take the Storm Drain boost that it's getting with that increased special attack.
然后这边空间应该要结束了。空间被字幕挡到，应该是剩一个回合。
Because the Gastrodon doesn't have to worry about the fake out from Incineroar. And could just be going after the Kyogre here.
他需要靠白棋来开第二个空间，但是这样的话，你会变成这个回合你要不要留火猫？你留火猫的话，他会对你狠化；你不留火猫的话，等一下他补位进场进苍响或妙蛙花，你2只都不太好受。
That is interesting, but this Calyrex as well does have a number of options in how it can play the game. The Calyrex could set it up itself.
这白棋开了一个守住，挡一个马威。那海兔要去抓掉火猫。哦，这个距离我感觉是不会死。 哦，没有，他选择留火猫了。那这手应该不错，因为火猫这个回合打马威，没有，他打马威，他马威打在白棋身上。
那可以啊。
但对方集距还没缴，然后这里海兔再叠了一个D，对方的盖欧卡已经惨了。对，火猫也是惨了。
这边空间结束，打得好欸。
对，这样他空间就可以再起来。
这边要架空间，这个人被他抛已经没事了。空间架起来，好重。
盖欧卡现在完全打不穿这两只，因为左边的海兔加白棋都是加2D 的状态，这个要解只能是根源要害。海兔直接收走。
收走了？为什么？我还没看到那
这操作太大胆了吧？因为对方是蛮有可能会打根源的，你这样子火猫直接进来会变成
他上火猫。
对。虽然是刚好抓到。逃脱装置的火猫。
Incineroar's attack to keep this Calyrex up, and then you can bring in something that can continue to thrive into these trick room conditions.
那你刚刚就不要把海兔收走就好了，为什么要这样做？
这样，他刚刚直接打不就挺好？
对啊，
打加开空间不就好了？
啊，你不想要，你可能他可能是想要把这两只留在场上，那你可以打巨臂啊。哇，你看，尴尬。空间开不起来，这个挑衅直接封掉了他刚刚的空间，然后这里盖欧卡烧死，然后畅想可以补位进来，这样会崩掉。
好像虎有挑衅啊！刚海兔跟咆哮
我觉得刚刚那个收海兔太大胆了，因为对方第一是他根源的可能性是很大的，他打一个根源是直接出大事，就火猫进来就直接掉，然后他这个挑衅也已经是出事了。就你刚刚我的话，我还是会选择去收掉火猫啦。就是我觉得，反正我不缺那个多空间要起来才会赢啊。那个有没有升 A？ 等一下再说。
Alex needs to set up the trick room. That's an
没有出
absolute
手权是
must.
没有救。
There is no way around him
我猫只能再进来
not
挡
getting that set up, and that for me is the big deciding factor. Getting this
然后
into
Mimikyu 这里要掉了。
the position is going to be a little bit more manageable. But you know, there's nothing really stopping right now. Victor just taunting the trick room setter he sees every single turn.
不过这样送的话，白棋应该可以在下一个回合去开空间吗？不对，他马威苍响就吃挑衅，他马威火猫，火猫跑了，那可以，只是会变成是碎粉不能中，他只能选择马威苍响，要不然就是白棋是抗刚果，他就马威妙蛙。但因为火猫回去的话，你就算空间架起来，他等一下他的集距还没有缴，然后他的那个火猫还可以再进来作为一个威吓。第一把应该是没了，
没了，右边应该差不多。他这边我看他进花应该差不多了，应该稳稳的。我现在看他进花，他后面是补这边位置是补白棋，
他只能补白棋了。
不
然你要在他最后是海兔啊，
没救啊！我觉得看起来没有，就是空间没有架起来，被挑衅。
那个挑衅很重要。
挑衅很重要。
he may not have got if it was sat at full health as well. So definitely.
马威选一个人拍，然后看白棋是不是抗刚。可是我觉得第一把如果是确定没的话，这里不如就不要透情报了吧。
Desperately need Trick Room here if you're Alex. That's how this team functions.
好，妙蛙直接冲击去了，不给马威。
From going back up.
Yeah, and Victor still has Dynamax, which he is going to use here. So here comes that Gigantamax Venusaur. And at this point as well, that's going to give you such a huge HP buff. What is this Incineroar really going to be able to do? And also, can this Ice Rider Calyrex, if it decides to just go for attack, is it going to be able to chew through that? No, it's still going to just go for a protect, and smartly so, to be able to deny the Behemoth Blade from this Zacian. And the G-Max Vine Lash now comes crashing down onto the Calyrex and setting up that chip damage.
Yeah, that chip damage is going to be really problematic. It's going to be the big problem. This is Incineroar though, trying to Flare Blitz. The Dynamax just gives it too much health, and I think the Incineroar just takes so much back.
现在就 one by one， 白棋聚少射程，然后火猫圣剑射程。
Zacian can just go for another Behemoth Blade here.
Yeah.
And then this Gastrodon unfortunately is going to have some trouble against anything else.
这边的话，以 BO 上来说，应该可以投了。再打下去就龙情报。
对啊。
I think the Calyrex would have been able to take it and set up.
但是他刚刚那样打，我觉得感觉就是不是抗刚啊。他是抗刚的话，他一定。
Such a gamble because of the Behemoth Blade.
那个马威，他是抗刚的话，他刚刚那样打，他也没办法去阻止那个巨草加巨兽长的伤害。这一场真的被压烂了。
But this Max Quake as well
哇，肯定是没有带上我的白龙。
我思考
这里还拼，这里拼双连保会赢。
不会啊，只是在凹而已啊。
不会赢啊。不可能赢啊！然后火猫再维和一次，
对啊，
空间还是加不起来，因为还是在
空间加起来也没救啊，后面还有火猫，满血量健康的满血火猫，没有，是残血火猫，残血火猫，讲错。
没救没救。
It's been so tough to be able to position to get it up, though, and I think that's been the biggest issue, is how do you really put your board together in such a way that you can actually execute that game plan? And for Victor, such a phenomenal job of preserving the Gigantamax till the very right moment, and also continuing to deny those openings for Alex to take advantage of. But Incineroar switching in for the Calyrex and Calyrex going
我打对面这一组的话，应该是不会带海兔，我会用巨地去拉低，然后你需要白龙去突破妙蛙花，海兔看到妙蛙花整个很无力。要不然你就是要出海兔，你就要一开始就要去抓死妙蛙花。
那你也会想要带白龙去那个去抓了妙蛙花之后，再让战场护持。
因为我一开始是觉得他可能是没有带白棋的。
他带白棋的话，
我是觉得看到苍响跟火猫的情况下，你带白棋就是像刚刚那样子，白棋这一场完全在空转了。他进来就是要开空间的时候被挑衅，然后接下来就是在那边守住，然后收回去又守住。
我感觉那边有一个机会，不知道他海兔跟他的火猫谁比较快。
他刚刚的机会就是在对方巨草加巨兽斩激活白棋的那个时候，他火猫如果是打马威打在苍响身上，他的空间是开得起来，但是空间开起来又怎样？对方后面还有一只火猫啊，然后妙蛙花极具血线是安全的
you got to learn as much of the moveset as you can if you're Alex. If you're not confident on some of these Pokemon, then you've got to learn as much of the moveset. Like you know what to run on Incineroar now, right? But you've got to figure out what everything else has and just make sure you've got that information going into game number 2. So it looks like Alex throwing in the towel on that one. Just let's play this one out and I'll go and set up a double trick room. The players having a little bit of banter there, just laughing about the results of that match. And I think, you know, Alex knows what he has to do. Just has to follow the plan a little bit better.
I still think that Victor made that incredibly difficult to do, though. And knowing that Incineroar has that taunt, it's much easier now for Victor to be able to deal with that trick room.
而且是希望带上来赢吧。
be able to get off that damage that it wants to. That Ice Rider Calyrex, of course, being one of the slowest Pokemon.
我觉得大家的共同理解是一样的，因为你有看寒冰的战报吗？
没有，我这次大家的战报我都没有看。
If you're only getting one trick room, you need to take more advantage of it, and that was kind of my beef, if you will, with Alex's early game plan, was that he left that
应该是只差在 Mimikyu 啊，确定一下。
So that would be an adjustment.
就是寒冰是夜里，然后这个选手 Alex 他是用 Mimikyu， 应该是只有差这一个。
Get in your sweeper and get that set up. If I don't even mind which sweeper it is, because
要带夜里还是带 Mimikyu 也是白棋对的。
Get through it very well. I'm not taking anything away from him. I do want to reiterate, like he played it so nicely by moving his board around.
Mimikyu 的好处就是内建一个断带，
can't just be giving up.
然后你的道具就可以去带白药草这样。
Your Gastrodon in, you need your Ice Rider Calyrex in. Those are the turns that you win and lose on. And I think if you apply more pressure there, it makes it harder when it comes to Trick Room 2 to
霍格的就索尔加雷欧嘛，他的那个还有露奈的那个专招，再来就是白龙、黑龙跟白冰龙这3只。
之前也被巨猩猩直接打掉过。
哦，巨猩猩也有，合理。
对，合理，直接被巨猩猩打掉过。就很怀念彷徨夜里，就是空间开不出来的。
而彷徨夜里的缺点也很明显，像这种有带挑衅的火猫，你也是夜灵就
没有办法，因为没有香草。 各有优缺，
对，各有优缺。
我知道火猫有性质，小心不要放火会伤。
The Incineroar also in a good position, so it's a tough one.
白龙 Mimikyu 吧，白龙 NQ 开，然后可能必要的话就直接冲白龙的集聚，后面白棋进来当一个收割手。
The other Pokemon I think would be interesting to see arrive.
火猫可能可以不带海兔，去阻止对方的巨水。
And where does it fit in that? Venusaur Kyogre really good lead.
对方也知道可能会带白龙。
But it doesn't quite stop the Mimikyu, which is my concern.
你看这样很尴尬了。
I mean, how?
看到开局了是吧？
I mean, okay.
因为 Mimikyu 道具通常会是心灵药草，所以我觉得你这里
他也是开，
对，
他也是开火猫 Mimikyu。
对，这个开局被抓。
Huge lead here, and it's a bit of a gamble, right? Like. It's definitely a gamble. Venusaur could also just go for the sleep powder. Yeah, no Dynamax means this fake out means we're getting Trick Room.
Yeah, Venusaur is going to go for the sleep powder. It does land onto the Incineroar this time.
但这次睡粉中了。
Incineroar to sleep, but this does pose
你刚刚睡粉中了。
problem that Victor ran into in that game.
其实我觉得他直接睡粉，他既然要打睡粉，你就直接睡 Mimikyu 会怎样吗？ 但是他知道 Mimikyu 是有抗睡道具的，我不确定，因为还没有看到情报。
然后他现在不睡 Mimikyu，
对啊，
为什么？奇怪哦，
可能是前面有情报是知道他已经他是抗睡的 Mimikyu 吧，我猜是这样。
You could have maybe tried a little bit of wiggle room. Now it's time for the Dynamax, and this is definitely going to be.
不过这个睡粉也让他在空间回合会很短，现在就打一些这个有压力的招式啊，
这边要直接巨草，
为什么不敢上来？这里给压力，要把一边给压力的同时，一边把空间耗掉。
Yeah, Mimikyu going for the taunt, but Venusaur is Gigantamax now. It's just gonna start unleashing these Dynamax attacks.
巨草喷水，
双调就看能不能后面上来2只推队，就是这样。
如果后面是白棋加白龙的话，有一点机会。
有机会。
如果
推不了就大抢淘汰。
不能是海兔哦，这时候不能是海兔，对，
海兔没救，巨草喷水，
一定要是白棋加白龙。
3会不够，那个
出来吧，白龙
也没有用。
Reshamu 不行啊，在这种时候，在这种关键最后没有退路的时候，你还不相信白龙？
他丢出来，然后没有白龙，
那你就只能回家。
完了，他丢啥？他丢海。
有白龙来了，那一定会有白棋。
哇，他丢了
191血的白龙。可以，这样是有机会的。现在那个他没办法巨兵，白棋直接冲起来，巨兵往那里冲，然后白龙打一个大地之力之类的去消嘎尤卡的血就好了。
Does need to pick his Dynamax carefully. I think both have their pros and both have their cons as the Dynamax candidate of choice. Maybe the Reshiram.
不过嘎尤卡有可能会收回去了，也许2只一起，白龙加白棋双冲，那个没办法守住妙蛙的位置会比较好。是嘎尤卡收上火猫。然后白棋巨兵去盖掉雨天，然后青眼打在妙蛙身上收掉。青眼要中哦，青眼要中哦。青眼中了妙蛙花死掉才会有机会。
The ability between turns just
keeping
the chilling name certainly problematic.
Well, I really like the Max Hailstorm choice because it does reset the weather away from the rain. Venusaur is going to take a huge chunk of damage from that. Victor, though, did switch out the Kyogre in favor of this Incineroar, being able to get a nice attack drop onto the. And that is going to be super effective damage, but the Reshiram can hang on for this next turn. Big problem though, Incineroar.
看一下，
这就是青眼的问题啊。
啊，那没了。
死去了。#相信。灵魂在这种时候关键卖了，你能够怎样呢？他 NQ 是防尘，所以我现在才看到身上在讲，NQ 是防尘，之前有上过，所以有情报了。
哦，那难怪没有睡那个位置。我睡掉火猫也火掉很多空间回合。
对啦，刚刚那个青眼中了的话，还有机会突破，这没中就直接死去了。这其实讲真的，中了也是很难的，因为它空间是会被拖得完的。因为你看他火猫进来，他等一下马威一定是打在白龙身上，那你白龙一定要被逼守，他该有卡再回来盖天气，然后现在那个白棋是降1A 的情况下，你巨地打谁都不会死，你只能拉一个 D， 然后最后空间被拖完，你最后要在血量不健康的情况下面对他的苍响，就
他后面还有苍响，是，就是有机会，但是这边没有这个。
热风是不够的。 他刚刚如果打热风的话，那个妙蛙不会死。
Where he just picks up the double knockout, really, really huge for him. I love the choice of the Dynamax here. I think Dynamax that Venusaur was absolutely massive.
我自己是觉得他刚刚要开就应该是要白龙加米 Q 一起开了，白龙加米 Q 一起开你才会。
The Calyrex is kind of stuck, right? The Calyrex can't do spread damage at the.
你才会一开始在空间的时候，你就有一个输出在场上。
You know what's it gonna do against Kyogre when that comes back in? What's it gonna do against Zacian when that comes back in at the end as well?
就很硬啊。
对，而且就像你
just
讲的，可以带白龙米 Q 后面藏一个海兔，不然不敢打巨水这样。
因为你白龙加米 Q 开的话，就是你的火猫可以不必要，火猫可以不必要，但是这样就怎么讲？我喜欢逃脱装置的火猫啦，它必要的时候拿来打一个就是关键的出来威吓，然后弹走，再进你要进场的输出怪。这个打法我自己也有玩过，我自己蛮喜欢的。但是刚好对到对面的对手，第一他肯定是有那个他的米 Q 是防沉浸的情报，所以他连续2场他都是没有去碎粉去碎米 Q 的。那第二是因为第一把他没有带白龙，我觉得第一把就要带白龙，因为那个白棋打对方有苍响有火猫的这个雨天的阵型很难过。第一，你打盖奥卡手段会变成只能巨地，然后巨地的情况下你会吃威吓，谁都打不死。所以我第一把我就会只带 S 神，如果要只单带一只，我一定是选白龙。那第二把的带怪我会变成是不带火猫，就白龙加米 Q 开这样子。然后关键的那个灵魂卖了是一点，但我觉得。灵魂没卖，抓掉妙蛙花后，可能
也不好打。
对，也不好打，
其实也不好打。
就变成是
他的问题是在于他在空间下面他很难轮转把他的人转上来，因为对面的打法就是拖空间，然后输出压场。
对啊。
他就轮转不上来，然后空间一下就是慢慢被磨蹭，就是被消耗掉。
而且白龙的血量191表示他的速度是练蛮多的，就是除了输出以外，剩下应该是都可以速度。所以反正不管怎样，那个白龙他在空间中他还要再吃一次火猫的狠话。
他2把都火猫开，火猫在这个对局给压力太小。
还有主要是那个火猫的挑衅，让他第一局本来还有一个第二次空间就没有了，差在这里。那第一局有一个，我觉得就是空间被挑衅的那个回合，他选择的是把
海兔下去，
对，海兔下去那个就真的蛮奇怪的，因为你把海兔留在场上，它好歹是一个加2D 的海兔，虽然面对等一下妙蛙花是没什么屁用啦，是，但是你在对方盖奥卡还活着的情况下，直接把火猫丢进来，真的很危险，看了就觉得好可怕。
而且如果他那边想要绑挑衅，应该是换火猫打保护吧，就是会比较合理吧。他想要等一下马威空间的话，他应该会丢火猫，然后保护。然后如果他这一只这个按键弹走，那我们就会说他没办法。但是这样子会很合理吧？
是，
如果他想这样打的话。他那边也没保护啊，然后他切火猫也没保护。
对。而且他切火猫，他就直接弹走，所以他基本上马威是打不出来。我相信那个就算不是动光打在身上，那不是动光就肯定是根源啦。根源的话，火猫就是直接炸开啊。
就他如果赌人家残血高卡，而且需要保，就是他想赌马威，他想要马威空间的话，应该是保护，应该也不错。不知道他那边想，就看不懂还想。 他那边花一个按键下去，然后再把那个炸迷图上来，是想跟人家猜吗？猜哪边才关键？
没有，我觉得那一手是绝对是一个致命的失误，因为你等到盖欧卡那个回合，他被烧死，海兔在场上，然后你的后手再进火猫是不会有任何问题的，
你不会有问题啊。
对啊，你就算送一只海兔给对方的极具妙蛙花，然后火猫再安全的进场，这样你还不用吃逃脱装置，然后在妙蛙花极具的情况下，你的火猫可以安全的不会就是直接马威锁死对方的火猫的位置，然后你的空间就可以架起来。所以我觉得第一场最大的问题就是他那个关键的海兔在最后一个回合集聚，他直接手动把它换下去，然后又丢了一只逃脱装置火猫进来，这是非常的尴尬。
很尴尬。
哦，这边已经2组4强已经出来，所以下一个就是4强战了。Joseph 这个 U-9 打 Eric
就是 U-9，
对。
哦，我现在看到了，我们 Marco 没有进啊，他太硬了，太硬了。Wolfie 也没进。
Marcus 是那个吧 ？Marcus 是那个优喜17，对不对
？The Europe International Championships that is
好
running
像是
that Sun
好
team.
像有
And
印
of
象。
course we
就是
saw
那个 16的时候跟 Wolfie 用同一个队伍，他们那个好基友，就是他们2个都是用概念，他们队伍是一模一样，然后在4强内战，
一模
对对对，他们队伍一起组的。
Also going to be super interesting team matchup wise because that one there is Kyogre versus Kyogre. However, Victor does have that Torkoal, so different modes of weather available for him.
我绝对可以再看，
One thing for sure.
看，
我觉得可以来看。刚刚那个好激动啊！
对，
刚刚就是
看到白龙都醒了，看到白龙本来想睡觉都醒了。Wolfie 第9名，太难过，
太难过了。Wolfie 第9名，太难过。天哪，输小分吧。
刚本来因为早上下班，然后我其实到快要中午才睡，然后睡到刚刚中午，其实刚刚还蛮累的，然后刚刚看到白龙，就整个头脑都醒了。
真的，我觉得你肯定是很累的。刚刚那个也是被苍响乱移斩掉，那肯定是心累的不行。
心累啊！
还想说，
我本来抓你带盖欧卡队的，因为我觉得你可能会用盖欧卡队来打那个白龙固。
不会，我最近发现自我的时候，我觉得锦鲤龟好可爱哇！我就要进。
Akerois 是这一次 Swiss 的第一。
好强哦
！9比0，
他带什么可以他9比0，他带什么可以9比0？好好奇哦！
我觉得9比0是很扯，
扯到歪头。
我昨天有在群组跟大家说，那个6比0在这种等级的大赛里面都还只是刚开始而已。你6比0后面连续拿一个3败，你就出去了，你就 Day 2都进不了。
没错，6比0会出去，没错。
We were able to bring you through the top 8, but Lee and Lou to take over for you for top 4 right after this break.
7-2也是会出去的。
是7-2不会，7-2确定。
7-2确定就是
对
X 就是差之2都进吗？
他们是取32强，然后最后32强里面有4个还是6个是6-3。Renia 上9比0，又 Renia 上，
真的吗？哇！
无敌的吧？干这组实在太夸张了吧？
这组无敌的吧？
太无情了，太无情了。
你上礼拜是不是也被这暴打一顿？我看。
对啊，我被小轩用这组啊，我一直在打我自己的队友啊。VTL 之内战，英雄内战，我从大赛结束到现在内战没有停过哎。我第一周打有亮，第二周打小轩，第三周打你，我不知道在冲三小，然后大家都很懂我，你们都知道我要干嘛，可以不要这样吗？
知道你要干嘛是肯定知道的，
可以不要吗？那我可以躺分吗？我可以回家了吗？退坑。
大家都老朋友了，这无敌的吧？真的哎，哇 ，INC 也第一，排位也第一，
这组实在太夸张了，
仿佛回到当年
版本答案哎，
当年代售。
对啊，这是那个 Big Six， 完全就是2022 ver Big Six。
不用组队啦，就这队就好。不过 INC 也是带这队被暴打一顿，就是
我觉得 INC 是 BO1 的东西跟 BO3 不一样，
就
这队是 BO3 的稳定性非常的强。哦，可以关英文字幕是不是？好，那我把英文字幕关掉。那英文字幕在那边挡那个情报也是蛮烦的。
这是新的 Big Six， 太强了。
为什么他们的那个他们的背景音乐这么的传奇啊？这背景音乐很有 BW 英雄的感觉。
要是这一组也斩下 EUIC 夺冠，
那
真的这组就
世界赛大概就是看到很多的人家上吧，
很多的内战跟很多的。
怎么没有？
其实我认真想过，这个内战到底聚谁好？
这个内战聚谁好？应该是要先控
诉吧，就顾或喷。
因为其实讲真的，我跟芊芊我们打的那一轮就很类似内战，就差别只在于我是白龙，他是喷火龙，然后我没有巨魔这样子，所以两边的关键都还是控诉，然后
控诉很重要。
原始的那个 Renia Song 它是铁球嘛，它是多了一个铁球，所以就关键是你把铁球换到谁身上这样子。他可能除了电波完之后，还会再来一个铁球。
铁球，
安安。
哦，有人说为什么最后版本答案会是顾场？很简单，因为没有人打顾场。
因为他实在太强了，已经
没有人打得赢了，已经没有队伍可以阻止得了。就是
3个阿赛的冠军啊，台湾阿赛跟盐湖城阿赛，还有一个之前哪里的阿赛，3个阿赛的冠军，已经完全就证明这一组就是这么的强力啊。
INC 4月的前2名都是这一组啊。
是。
然后看这一组
内战的差别就是谁的电马威比较给力啦。
那确实，
确实。
所以为了对付内战，我的喷都是带拉姆。
我刚才是土云拉姆喷是防尘，因为土云要抗烧伤。
因为我好烦那个电磁波了。
oh my goodness, they were a great watch.
They were amazing to watch, and what a way to kick us into the top
然后真的
8of
是
this tournament, and we are now getting into the top 4.
盖瓦斯来打这
And,
组
you know,
也没有
like
那
you
么
say, those matches were incredible to watch, and
也没有
very
到
fast-paced as well.
很稳定的可以
So
赢下这一
it'll
组
be。interesting to see if that pace continues
猜拳
into
啦
the top
猜
4
拳
as we get closer to crowning our
主要
champion.
有个顾压在
Exactly, and it's
瓦
nice
斯
to see
身
the
上，
journey that our players are
其
going on, and the
实
fact that we've been able
顾
to
一直
capture
加
so
克
many of
法
those moments
盖也
on
打
the
不太
stream
动。
as well. You know, one thing I
没有要
was
看
really
顾
impressed
跟
by was how
盖
dominant
谁快。
Joe
如果盖是快的那边，
was
他
in
定
that
盖加瓦斯是没有
game.
问
You
题
know,
的。
heartbreaking for Javier. I know he had such a strong
上礼
run
拜好
coming
像就
into
是
this
打到
day,
比
and
较慢的
just
赛，
unfortunately things didn't quite go his way.
好
But
像就
Joe
不知道为
certainly
什么
looking
赢
to
了。
try and push through to those finals and try and take the title home.
Yeah, definitely, and you know he is piloting.
他盖是快的话，他直接定着瓦斯，然后盖直接冲起巨水，然后用巨水开雨天，然后接下来就是一
然后就
very effective throughout
一
this
路打。
tournament for him.
对，
And going up now against Eric Rios
上礼拜好像
in
就
the first top
波
4
三的时候
match
打到比
of
较慢的
this
盖。
this tournament. So you know, going to be really tough because Eric, like we've said before,
哦
you
对，
know,
而
the
且
whole
瓦斯
story
很容易
about
被其
Eric
他
was
队弄
great.
上
Had
去。
that round 1 loss and then has just been
你要针对
unstoppable.
我们这个晴
up
天
to this point.，
你还得
He's
注
done
意其他
incredibly
队伍
well.
不要
I
来
think。the last round of Swiss, he might have taken a loss there, but you know, at the end of the day, you're already guaranteed to go through to the top 8 in that situation. So
这种 T0 的东西，你要针对他可以啊，问题是你针对了他，你不一定打得赢其他的队伍啊。这边你只是针对他，然后你在环境中没有足够的生存能力的话，你可能你遇到 Runia 上你可以赢，然后你没有遇到你就下去这样。
Unfortunately, but what a great accomplishment, nevertheless. And you know, the one thing that I will say about Eric is he is the last hope for that classic Sun team winning this event. I think he's the only one. You know, we've got Victor, we've just seen Victor on there, but he is running a slightly different Sun.
Slightly unconventional with the tall call.
Yeah, just a little bit different, but fitting it in there nonetheless. But Eric is running that classic.
哦，这场好期待哦！
And
我好想看到晴天队又赢。
so well throughout this. Going to make it extremely
我好像
for Joe to.
Eric
6
是打
月19也是
Joseph 嘛
带晴天。
对啊 ，Joseph 是顾 Y， 搞不好顾 Y 是比较有机会突破的。
That's the thing, a lot of eyes will now be on Eric Rios and that team because coming into
因为 Y 不会被巨魔控到，你也没办法电波他。然后突破 Y 的方式是要用喷吧？
他要喷，要巨火要烧。
对。
顾 Y 应该是比较有机会打的。
哦 ，Eric 就是利物浦的赛冠军，我不知道。
And everyone did expect it to be the team, be everywhere. But it really, we've not seen a plethora of it as what we expected. There is just that sprinkle now of that Sun left in top
大
4.
数据告诉我们
That's
这个
Eric to kind of take it
零压上
prove that it is the best team
太强了，太
to
强。
take into any sort of
对，Top 4
tournament at the moment.
And of course, we will be bringing you both of the top 4
Good.
games here on the broadcast. And I believe it is Eric's game we're going to be starting off with, is it not?
It is Eric's game against
期待哦。
Yes, that will be the first game that we will be kicking off with in our top 4 coverage here at the International Championships in Frankfurt.
I'm looking forward to being able to cast Joe's game as well because he's been on stream quite a lot so far in this tournament, but he wasn't having a lot of success with his stream games up until the last one that he just played.
好像剑盾以来好像没有很久没有就是
这么顶的 Big 6可以一直在环境上，然后那么稳定的每一场大赛都拿冠军。不过我觉得主要是因为前2年刚好疫情的关系，都比赛都卡住了。但是真的前几季是环境是很多元的，
很多变，
对，
就是
只有到 S12才变成。就突然出现了一组类 Big 6的东西，但我觉得这也是蛮合理的，因为就芊芊之前有说过嘛，那个当你的 S 神火力都很高的情况下，你剩下的队员选择性也相对变很少，因为要能够阻止这些 S 神的怪兽本身就不是那么的多，所以最后你的圈圈就局限在很小的那几只里面，就会变这样。
剑盾我最有印象的应该就是波克
龙头地鼠，波克 克班鼠，
然后洗衣机。然后风速狗窝，
那个在一开始的环境也是很强的。
那个是剑盾，我就是印象中最正的 B6， 然后这次的这个赛季才又有一组 B6 这么强，就像当时的那组。那其他的环境，所有队伍都有出头。
整体来说，剑盾前面的环境都是，我自己是觉得很好玩，就什么东西都可以玩。
很好玩，对，很好玩，是个不错的一代。大家要以我们布拉多来结束吗？这一代就结束在布拉多队。
布拉多的高光时刻。内战只有2件事情，一件事情是布拉多会不会买，跟电波谁比较厉害，谁的电马威比较强。
每次到了省战，就是我们该玩的高光时刻，仿佛梦回1619。
Yeah, well, we're so lucky to have you here at the desk with that analysis. I mean it, Lou. That is that you really have Eric is clear perfectly there. Everything that you've just said.
看山也是称霸了3个。
哦，对了，看山那一组也算是 Big 6，对不对？就那个乌菲他在 Play Cup 2用的那一组探山。对。
不过因为那个同时存在，像是多边2票要花给你猜拳，
对，桂花那一组。
very accomplished players.
对啊，就是你还有其他选择，就没有到好像都只会看到那个乌菲的探山。
乌菲探山那时候决赛是打布瓦斯也是。
Being able to showcase their excellent skill and amazing Pokemon play is certainly an educational moment for everyone at home and for us here as well behind the desk.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you look at the two teams as well.
我本来要把你抱过来的，你刚刚跑过来叫。
But Joe does have the Sun mode at his disposal as well. He does have the Venusaur, whereas Eric's got the Charizard. And then you have to look at Joe's team. What's his answer for the Charizard? Because you've got to.
又希望 Joseph 能赢，但是又很想看到人家上毁灭这个世界。
毁灭世界，不要这样啊！
But there's double ground on Eric's side of the field,
毁灭
which makes
世
it
界
a bit difficult, So it's a very, very tough match to call. Right
it
now.
certainly is. They have really good counters to so many different mechanics on the opposing team. Let's jump into this very first top 4 match.
雷柱火猫开
Division here in Frankfurt. It's going to be for Joe, the Regieleki and the Incineroar diving out into the action with an Incineroar.
这么激烈的吗？
Paired up with that
这都不怕直接撞古拉多爆开吗？
With something like MX Lightning, but as you mentioned there, Lee,
你不觉得雷柱火猫开到古拉多直接豆叶痛啊？还是因为他觉得反正我有妙蛙花，你是绝对不敢开古拉多的。
回来了。
他雷柱有偷条血哦，159血雷柱。
Probably unlikely that we see the Gastrodon in this matchup just because of the Venusaur inclusion on Joe's side.
雷柱直接撤走。
You can't discount it, and there is always a possibility of
古拉多丢进来。
Well, the ground type has joined the field, but it's actually for Joe's side. The Groudon's going to switch in for that Regieleki, allowing Regieleki to play a little bit later on in the match. Fake out from one Incineroar, going into the other. Eric seeming to be the faster here. As we see the items switch around as Groudon gets the Iron Ball and Grimmsnarl now gets the Assault Vest. An interesting item choice on that Grimmsnarl might be a little bit difficult for it to now go for those status moves, but certainly is going to slow down that Groudon.
Yeah,
看懂他道具是换到了背心吗？ 瓜多是铁，现在是铁球。
我现在还在看，
你看一下。
对，
巨魔拿到背心嘛？
巨魔拿到了背心。
那他这一手是抓他直接抓那个巨魔换道具，他用那个瓜多的背心来锁死巨魔。
没错。 那这样巨魔没有电吗？我
哎，不好说。喷要进来了。是喷进来，
喷进来。
看这手有没有抓喷进来，岩崩。
有没有岩崩？有没有岩崩？
如果岩崩的话，那个 Joseph 就是屌抓到尾，屌抓2手。
没错，这边屌抓岩崩，赚到不行。
屌抓岩崩就直接赢，直接赢。哇，喵要进来吃到了这个，不舒服。
他吃到
Stone Age 啊 miss， 他抓到了，但是他 miss 了。
哎呀，干，怎么有这种事情发生？
太难过。这个中了的话 ，Joseph 这一把就要赢了。
直接赢一把，真的中了直接赢一把。Stone Age， 哦，
是屌抓2手哎。然后卖掉亏，
卖掉，一切的做局都没有。
但我觉得晴天玩家心脏都很大颗哎，最后岩崩都不配了。
就是晴天好玩，
就是要 Stone Age。喷感觉会直接冲起极巨了。
要冲巨了，这里已经是冲巨，这已经是大。
然后妙蛙大概只剩睡，然后就送掉。哦，他刚 Stone Age 是打巨魔，那个有没有中没差？
哦，他刚 Stone Age 打巨魔，没有打咆哮虎，你刚刚没看到。啊，要是带个岩崩崩在喷脸上，就是直接。
对啊，如果是岩崩的话，是直接赢。
直接赢。
但碰龙虾极具空转。
Berry there? Is there a berry? No berry there, so we know it's not a Lum or a Chester berry on the Charizard.
哦，没有抗税。没有躲掉这个税。
没抗税的话，应该是抗岩果，是不是？
应该是抗岩。
没抗税也不是拉姆，不是防尘，不是拉姆的话，那最后的可能性就是抗岩的。我记得盐湖城的时候，2个人其中1个人是抗岩嘛。
It can do a lot of damage in return.
And I think as well, if you're Joe, you have to look. We've seen 3 of Eric's Pokemon. Only 1 restricted is in the back. You can't bring both of them. So if you're Joe, you need to maybe think: is it the Groudon? Is it the Zacian? And start planning forward to make sure that you have those counters towards the end game. Joe decides to also go for the Dynamax. It's going to be the wonderful Regieleki. I mean, this is a great opportunity. Charizard's taking a little bit of a nap. Regieleki could go for those powerful.
但布拉多还没处理掉，冲雷柱的话，
我觉得还可以，因为这个喷火龙应该是现在是不会先下去。他现在打固拉多以外的位置一下，他只要把固拉多以外的都处理掉，其实他后排还有东西好追顾，应该 Joseph 这边拿一局应该不输。对掉火猫，
那他等一下这边补位进固的话，那他的妙蛙要先撤，然后上歪鸟，然后雷柱可能打一个巨臂。
我觉得直接把咆哮虎这样电死，就是电场下把咆哮虎电死之后，雷柱送掉应该也没错。
The match isn't over by any means, but it does make it very difficult.
看他是带疯狂植物还是那个
Gigantamax Pokemon, and you've got another Pokemon Sleep still on the field.
还可以打布打一发，就送掉应该也没差的后吧。
这场是没带歪鸟。
That's the one issue here. So you can't just go, hey Venusaur, put this Groudon to sleep. So bringing in the Incineroar to go for that Intimidate, it's just going to help that Regieleki out in case there is a Precipice Blades coming in that direction. A switch as well for Eric, going to be bringing in the Grimmsnarl as the Regieleki goes for another Lightning. This time boosted up as well by that Electric Terrain into the Grimmsnarl. But thanks to the Assault Vest that it got earlier from the Groudon, it's going to be able to survive that attack.
巨魔现在是背心，他知道这个可以拿来挡一发。
就是我们9杠0，对，打一发。
他刚更正一下，他不是9杠0，是8杠1，一败开局，然后后面8胜。
那这样这个。
Very true.
Joseph
was just going to switch out.
有上来维和是对的。但是他左边巨魔这个位置现在是贯穿了。
现在应该是贯穿的没有错。
贯穿了。然后几句也没有了。我感觉这个想收下去。
后面妙蛙花还在，然后火猫还在睡，剩下固拉多思考。
这边固会补进来，今天再开启了。然后，
但这里可能会双掉。Joseph 的关键是妙蛙花不能卖，因为你现在要保妙蛙花的血线，你这里哦，他选择还是。这也很勇敢哎！
他现在有没有电力上升啊？他是电力上升？
他刚是电网吗？他刚电网卖掉是不是？
他打了啥啊？他怎么叹气？
应该是电网卖掉吧？
没有，他手腕福特打在瓜多身上。
哦，
他点错了。
傻眼，
然后断来 miss 了喵花这样子，因为我现在看到了，他点错了，他丢失了一个电场手腕福特电咆哮虎的大好机会，他干嘛？
傻眼，
他上不在瓜头上啊！他点错啦，
这个失误还蛮关键的。
关键失误，而且现在妙花睡不了人，
妙花只能打一发大的。
现在妙花能打一发大的，但是咆哮虎随时有可能醒来，已经睡2回合了。
是，然后这一只固拉多是铁球，他现在跑不赢人。
没错，他现在要来回威吓固拉多，但是这边来回威吓也是被固拉多断了一直点。
火猫醒了。
来，飞风帽打多少？哦，飞风帽伤害不错。
那还行，这边火猫再补位回来，断剑不要卖就可以。
对，
断剑不要卖才会赢。还有固拉多不能被火猫烧伤。
刚那个手腕福特没有点，没有点。
我刚才想说是怎样？为什么雷叔没有做到4？是电网卖吗？
不是电网卖，是
10万福特点固拉多，傻眼！
傻眼！真的哎，他是不是以为他有标靶？
没有，他一定是手残点数，关键的一个。
来这边断崖别卖，
还好那不是一个就是一错就完全就没有的东西。
因为他前面两手吊抓，让他有这个容错率有高一点。
我猫还可以再吃一次。
这边马威看一下，
但是没事。
断崖，
断崖没卖。这一发一样是断剑，两边的断剑不能卖。然后。哦，有人卖了。Eric 的断剑卖了，卖了火猫。那 Eric 要下去了。
Eric 下去了。
就是火推收掉瓜多。
啊，卖了。不过 Joseph 本来就赢面比较大。
对。因为他前面的那个火猫已经，在他剩下2次的时候，他就已经做了2次威吓了。他来回这样进出就做了2次威吓，只要没有什么红字，他就是会稳。那个10万福特就算了，给你了，让你一直垒住。
我还是觉得雷柱打这个瑞亚上还蛮优，就是他除了挂路之外的其他位置都是灌球位。就是如果没有带海豚，他只要往布拉多旁边的位置点，就全部点死。还是我们店主太可爱，跳来跳去。
就是这也是一只做坏的宝可梦。以前的年代 ，GBA 的年代，速度50等，速度200就顶天了。现在没有人跟你速度200，你好慢哦，你怎么速度只有200？人家速度不用练就220。
对啊，怎么跟我们店主比？
太扯了，这只宝可梦实在太夸张了。
他跳一跳变大，手一伸起来，那个电就下来了，你就死。
以后要玩那个 AC 雷柱，攻强皇国机甲 AC。
觉得到第9代我们店主肯定都是还是可以的，他有这个速度，还有电网，他不要把电网太厉行。我投店主1票。
至少我一开始的图鉴不能有它了，一开始图鉴就有它的话就坏掉了。
你们再等3年，2025年世界赛，应该又是店主。
速度200，现在是在讲速种，对，速度200以下的都很慢。
我这边
那个现在的速限就是你开了顺风之后，你有没有过速度200？速度括号种族200，没有的话，那请你下去。
不过这边他用电柱赢了一把，其实 Eric 这边其实蛮难选会。他选海兔也不对啊，有个花压在那边。
一样的开局，
我觉得选的4只没有错。
这边要猜拳的，
你已经看到开局了。
对啊。
快了。
And then it's not the big threat for the Charizard anymore. You know, you can deal with it a lot easier. You're going to be able to potentially hit it before it actually can attack and be that threat that it was in Game 1, because it was the kind of the catalyst that started the domino effect to allow Joseph to kind of close this game up.
Well, fake out from Eric's Incineroar going into the opposing Incineroar as Grimmsnarl
巨魔先开了一个墙
light screen boosting up the special defense on Eric's side of the field. Reggie goes for a
交付胜负也是很抓，他直接抓他这一手不会再直接换道具了。然后这边只有10V 消了一点巨魔的血线，双方都是得到了一个可以接受的结果。
Now able to get that light screen up, maybe thinking, right, let's get my screens up, and then I'll have that.
对啊，这个手腕福特没有出马屁。
Reggie taking a defensive approach and just going for a protect as Grimmsnarl goes for the second screen, setting up
双强起来 ，Joseph 不会太好受哦。
Eric Rios very early on here. Incineroar going to go for the parting shot, but to no avail as it lands into the protect. But the Incineroar on Joe's side, no protects on Eric's side, so can go for that parting shot into the opposing Incineroar and allow Joe an opportunity to switch up the ball position.
Yeah, and it's a nice play here from Joe just to protect
他这边
just in case the trick did come out there, just to make sure that you weren't getting that iron ball. It's a nice play, and it also just protects the Reggie
顾直接进来，但顾进来在这里他是不能够摊几句的。
也没必要摊几句吧，直接打进去，就直接打断还蛮赚。
直接打断崖，问题是2只都不会死。
不会死，但是他2只也不敢换人来接断崖。
是。
或者是他想换喷来
And there we go. The
赌对面
Incineroar
没
with
打
its
远
Dark
攻。
type does jump in for the Regieleki, ready to try and block a potential trick as Grimmsnarl does go for it. And of course, it will not affect the opposing Incineroar. An excellent switch.
这个也是很抓，他知道这边会被换了，他就用火猫来挡你的换道具。这个巨魔就直接在卡在场上被空转。但火猫在这时候赶快打了一个狠化轮转转走，这样喷要进来了。
Yeah, and you've got to think that maybe here's the time to try and get that Charizard onto the field. There's no Venusaur out from Joe. There is no Regieleki on the field now, and it feels like a great time to get the
喷进来，因为现在 Eric 这里他有双强，
有双强
是，然后 Joseph 库拉多那个位置现在是可以被换掉背心的，所以现在其实如果他硬要走喷去换血的话是可以的。
可以，而且刚刚看到喷不是那个，不是抗状态的道具，不可能是抗眼。
先做一个威吓，那喷他有没有走起急剧？有，走起急剧。
有。
应该会直接灭眼吧，因为他就算拉一个巨飞也是过不了后面的雷柱，那雷柱一定是要用过拉多去处理，那他这边直接换血效益是最大的。
Well, Joe going for a Dynamax as well. This is certainly the moment for Dynamax here.
还有这个喷就让我想起来，第一次在台中就是剑盾第一在台中比的时候，有人带了太阳力量喷火龙被说不能用。
改售。
Charizard is going to go for the G-Max Wildfire, so opting for that residual damage, particularly in the sun with solar power.
你说我们最后一次的台中 MS 吗？在那之后我们就
改了，
是啊，太难过了。
这时候我还记得有人说：“哎，你怎么可以用太阳之地的？以后就是喷我棍血，
太扯了。”
But still dealing a very significant chunk and critically boosting up the special defense
of
Joe's Pokemon here in the face of the Charizard as well as Incineroar. We're going to boost up special defenses. Let me reduce your special attack as well.
Yeah, it's a really nice play here from Joe, you know, not opting for that potential rock type attack that we were talking about because you know, we discounted that there's no Lumberry or safety goggles or anything like that in the Charizard, so maybe there is a Charty Berry there. It is one of the big kind of common options to give Charizard that little bit of extra protection against those rock type threats. And you know, now Joe's boosting that special defensive stat. It's going to make him able to take the next Wildfire if that's what the Charizard chooses to throw out a lot better, especially with that parting shot now from the Incineroar on his side of the field that's just got that attack drop again.
雷柱现在是蛮尴尬的。
A great position to kind of pressure the Charizard even further.
因为现在的威力不足以打死喷，还是他要电网加巨眼，
电网巨眼吧，这边如果被拍就被拍吧，电网巨眼吧。
就他打了守住，
守住那就是躲开。
好，果然是抗炎果。
前一场没有那个道具，应该就是抗炎。继续打一发。
好，这边巨炎下来的好处是把晴天给盖掉了。对。
The sun for that solar power ability.
可是现在场上对
抗炎之后的伤害，我看一下。
这个抗炎是还有再加上强跟威吓过瓜拉多，所以这伤害是蛮痒的。
加一个电网也完全没有办法的。
这双强的巨魔就是这么的安定。
对，
所以我后来才会说我那个雷雨带 P 网，就很怕双强。
可以把双强巨魔完美的融入这个晴天，也是人压上，好在 BO3 很强的地方。
Well, that's the thing. The Groudon's managed to make it in for Eric without taking an Intimidate or a parting shot, so it should be able to easily pick up the KO, obviously, against Regieleki, but it's certainly putting Groudon in a difficult position here as well. Not surprised to see Regieleki leave the field in the face of the Groudon as Incineroar joins to throw down and intimidate against this opposing Groudon, start working on it a little bit and reducing the offensive pressure that it has. I mean, there's so many different variables going on here. The light screen has gone down, but the reflect is still in place. And there you go, Lee. You mentioned about the Max Guard. Charizard has indeed gone for it as Groudon goes for the Precipice Blades, avoiding the Groudon on Joe's side and activating the Sugar Berry on that Incineroar. So it is going to be able to find this. You can see these berry choices that are reducing the damage
的火猫跳了抗地
have been so critical.
那就是有打中。
just give the Pokemon coming in these slots with those berries just a little bit.
可以啊，有火猫抗地在这边先缴了，可以。
Do the job that you want them to without that worry about getting taken out so quickly and again.
问题是先手权都还在 Eric 手上，然后旧的血线都不健康了，
因为他烧还是继续烧。
on things like a Precipice Blades and then have this active fake out like we're seeing now to just slow the game down a little bit and then allow you as a player to kind of reposition and kind of get yourself into a better spot to kind of take forward.
不就这场还没有露他最后一只是谁？不确定是不是妙蛙花。这边如果把他的 喷火龙擎天极巨蚁也拖完了的话，他最后如果是歪鸟的话，那其实
歪鸟
赢面蛮大的。好，马会段啊是炎刃的，但炎刃有这个要害，没有要害好像没差，因为巨魔血线不健康，他那个换上来挡他炎刃，就算没有死，他沙暴还是会刮死他。 然后古拉多被灭火烧死，那这里应该要看最后一只是谁了，或者他还是要雷柱先回来，应该不会，因为场上是火猫，已经抗帝国缴掉了。
The Venusaur because you kind of if you got the Venusaur you really want the sun in play
就他是先进雷柱，
看对面最后一只是带谁要来收掉这个股，
他可能需要雷柱去抓死喷火龙，那是妙蛙花的可能性比较高。
The Incineroar there, Sugar Berry's gone. It's susceptible to taking big damage from it. And now the Regieleki's come onto the field, and also another Pokemon that doesn't like those big ground attacks.
但如果是妙蛙花的话，就这一把输掉可能性是蛮大的。
很想要玩鸟。
Charizard leaves the battlefield for Eric, being replaced by that Incineroar, really low HP, but just
保
throwing down the
护，然后
intimidate
火猫下去，
and
等下再
possibly just allowing Eric to have that switchability going into this next couple of turns.
保护
The
拖
Incineroar,
一下喷
however,
火
Joe
猫
is。 going to retreat as well back into his Pokeball as Venusaur is revealed as the fourth and final Pokemon. So as you mentioned, Lee, this is going to be critical.
他这里要电转
Eric
吗？
not wanting to
没有
accidentally set up the sun to help
啊，直接
that
打
Venusaur
死，
later
收掉
on
残
in
血
the
的
game.
火猫，
And he's
但
not
是
you know, Eric's taking
断剑中了的话，
had two Pokemon KO'd now.
啊，miss 了妙蛙花，但有中雷柱就好。
It will be able to pick up the KO against Regieleki though, evening the
雷柱
score.
死了，喷才有
And the
位置可以
Venusaur now. This is where I think, depending on how the Pokemon
他看如果是 miss 雷柱就有机会了。
Yeah, this is the
就有机会了。
就有機會。
Question is, does it have Weather Ball though? Because if it
JOE 有機會了。
這邊雷柱倒了，那噴就在這4隻裡面會。
現在只剩下兩邊的最終2隻對決了。古拉多還是背心的，然後妙蛙花他只能靠碎粉來逆轉嗎？
他只能靠碎粉逆轉。
没有，他直接用了岁月风暴，但是没死。
刚刚就有看到是上一把就看到是16。
感觉这一手应该要他那个
喷没有冲哎，
对啊，他
喷走没有冲。
可是我觉得他这边就好像也打蛮奇怪。他喷守住是合理，因为他要躲一个马威啊，他有可能会被马威加碎粉，他躲一个马威是蛮合理的。但是我觉得就这边他没有打马威碎粉也是蛮奇怪的。
If the Venusaur can manage to get a sleep powder, it has got reduced special attacks. That it is a long shot to pull this back, but there is a slight.
没了 ，Blaster 棒，
没了。
妙蛙花对喷火龙对决，精彩1比1。
Take down the Venusaur and tie up
We're going to a game 3, phenomenal there by Charizard. You know,
哦对，妙花有气象球，所以他刚刚还有一个马威加气象球距那个延时的可能。
哦，他有气象球。那很难说，人家保护有点。
我觉得手喷没有问题啊，反而是就那边我觉得好像是没有碎粉吗？不对吧？他第一把有漏碎粉啊，那他刚刚应该要打马威碎粉打库拉多吧？他只能这样赢。
对，他应该碎库拉多。他只能睡挂多，那这样子他只能睡挂。他一定得马威喷睡挂。
我会马威加睡都打库拉多，因为库拉多是不能守住的。然后你也不能让他断剑出来，然后喷可能要留给火猫去处理。刚刚你最后是马威加碎粉，假设像刚刚那样子喷是守住的话，碎粉有中瓜多碎，那接下来下一个回合你才有机会去是，就是火猫是不能给的。但刚刚到那个残局，其实。就基本上是难赢的，难赢。我觉得最后应该是歪鸟才会是有机会的。第三把看会不会调整配置，可能两边都会调整一下，因为这晴天的内战其实打起来还是蛮痛苦的。
Yeah, 100%. And I think really when you look at it as well, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword if you're going for the max rockfall with the Groudon, because you are removing the sun, which is what the Venusaur really has to rely on in this matchup in particular. So you kind of feel like, well, could we maybe rely a little bit on Regieleki to deal with the Charizard? But if you don't time it right, like if you get the timing wrong, then the electric train's on the field and you can't utilize your sleep powders as well as you would have beforehand.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And here we are, game 3. Either Joe or Eric will be one of our very first finalists here at the European International Championships. So Joe has got the Regieleki and the Incineroar out on the field, whereas Grimmsnarl and Incineroar are coming up against Eric. Very, very similar leads this year.
海兔被封死了，苍响好像是，我觉得苍响好像是可以带的。只是你要带的
对局经验来说是可以带，对象就是要。
I think that could be really pivotal for Eric if you're able to reduce the speed of that Regieleki by throwing an Iron Ball in its direction. Will certainly give him such an advantage because Regieleki is just going to go through so much of the team. Fake Out's going to come out once again from the Incineroar on our side into the Incineroar of Joe as Grimmsnarl goes for the light screen. So we're seeing very similar turn play out here as we did in game 2. Regieleki even going for the Thunderbolt once again, targeting down into that Grimmsnarl and just doing a significant amount of damage. They're trying to remove the Grimmsnarl as quickly as possible, but Grimmsnarl's still going to be in a position to set up those screens.
我们聊天室也是很有趣，一边是那个 MKH Rinia 上 Rinia 上，然后那个yo Joe 加油，不要再让 Rinia 上去了。各有喜好，各有支持者。
没错，哇，这个很矛盾。
这个换到了铁球了，这样子不好受了，雷柱等于是废掉了。
Incineroar is going to go for the throat chop as well into the opposing Incineroar, just going to be able to shut down throat chop.
然后这里还被抓了一个地狱图刺，他没有办法用狠话转走，这样子很尴尬。但雷柱被换了铁球的应该还是比巨魔跟火猫都还要快。然后巨魔在这里应该是可以被抓掉的。
巨魔抓掉之后可以赶快上人上去。
就选择手换火猫。古拉多进来。可是现在是很尴尬，因为那个Joe的先手权，他的雷柱已经被换了铁球。 那 Eric 他要救他的巨魔，就在这里打了一个电网。那火猫对着那个火猫的位置用了狠话，这样救的库拉多进来就是减 EA 的状态。不得不说 ，Eric 第3场是完全在屌抓现在就非常不妙，一步步
都非常不妙，
被将军中，几乎是雷柱现在是
局面上一个人都没倒，但是 Eric 优势无限大，是优势无限大，这边喷再进来有多舒服。
场上救的库拉多减 EA， 然后雷柱被换了铁球，速度减半，
速度减半。
你后手换谁进来都是吃伤。还是只能换
谁进来都是吃这个面。
然后雷柱看起来是要送掉了。
雷柱减半，瓜多这个断了，雷柱就断了。
opposite a Regieleki and Incineroar, you might think that it's quite a nice time you're having, but not if those intimidates and parting shots keep coming off from the opposing Incineroar. But for Eric, it is going to be the Gigantamax Charizard into the fray, and it's in such a strong position here to go for something like a G-Max Wildfire into the Regieleki, just remove it from the field and obviously get that residual damage playing up as well.
黑暗球喷火了。
Joe also is Dynamaxing.
真的假的？在这种情况下，硬拒了雷柱。
我觉得其实蛮合理，就是希望不要被灭也灭掉。但是被灭掉就没了，伤害有够吗？
我记得是够的吧？
够的那就。
把
看他灭人打哪边哦。
失去 Crate。 我来算一下好了，我来帮各位算一下。
Crate 电柱吗？
对 ，Crate 电柱。因为我们知道雷柱它不是背形，而且
不是背形，只要算
它就只有15对。
这有没有 Crit 会不会死？反正 Crit 是必死的，没有 Crit
我来帮大家算一下，但反正这一把可以确定就应该就人没了。
我们人家上又添一胜，
太难过。第3把完全是被屌抓，这个没有什么好说的。然后 Eric 的火是那个 Blast 棒，150晴天灭炎，然后雷吉尔
No, not at all. And I think you've got the fake out here from the Incineroar that you can kind of slow down the Groudon here and go for the Sleep Powder into the Charizard, and then maybe you have to try and rely, if you are John, maybe maxing your Venusaur. It's not ideal, but the other option is maxing your own Groudon. Really, you need to get that on the field and be able to try and get the Charizard if you are able to.
刚刚好50%乱一，50%乱一的话，它集聚是对的，因为它集聚起来50%的话，它是有机会可以耐下来的。但是要害就没有了。50%不能说是低乱，就是中乱的，就刚好50%，就是它有1/2的几率可以活下来，非常的刚好。 这是一个没有办法下的解。哦，对，我少算了太阳之力，那没有。对对对，我少算。没有加了太阳之力是确一的，我刚只按到晴天而已，我少按太阳之力，是确一。是确一。是确一。我刚刚第一次计算的时候，我少按了太阳之力，我只按到晴天，这是确一。那他刚刚那个是怎么样都没有机会活下来的。
here at the European International Championships, and I think Joe knows as well that he absolutely deserves to be in that grand final tomorrow.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the way that Eric came back in that game.
抱歉，更正一下，刚刚那个灭炎是缺一没有错。
Just phenomenal to see how he adjusted, and then to take those big
opportunities that kind of presented to him in that game 3.
伤害可以到137%，他就算 HD 练满他都活不下来。HD 练满可以，HD 练满有是62%高乱，你只有37.5%的几率活下来。
Fueling a fire beneath him to keep going and getting these victories. And I mean, the thing in every single one of those games, I was wondering was my eyes were on the Grimstone. I was like, is it going to go for the trick? Is it going to get it? And you know, if it goes into a target, what's it going to get in return? Because that Assault Vest was really causing a few.
他刚刚那个第3场前面2手真的就是被抓烂了，真没办法。
I mean, that was clearly the strategy Eric was going for in game 1. Just failed to, you know, make it work, but being able to get it in the game 3 was essentially what got him that victory. So amazing to see kind of the determination of that Grimstone. It wasn't going to give up.
No, not giving up, and you've got to compliment Joe in that game 1 being able to switch in the ground to kind of catch that trick.
对，还有一个看完，剩下就是决赛了。他们决赛明天才会打，所以我们明天起来再看吧。
But picking the moment is what made the difference in that whole match. So you know that.
没有，今天只会打到4强结束，所以就是选出明天要打冠军的2个人之后，剩下的就是明天打。
Clearly did that there, and just massive props to him, just shutting that game down.
He did incredibly well. And speaking of top players, I think
我觉得第2把很可惜，第2把其实他最后是歪鸟的话，歪鸟会是一个完美的进场。
Thank you so much, Lee and Lou, and congratulations to Eric Rios, our very first finalist here at the Europe International Championships. How does it feel to know you're playing in the grand finals tomorrow?
这边已经是确定，准备要挑战 Day 3的 Rinia 上。
Yes, I'm in the final right now, so I can't believe it, but. I want to win the whole thing for all the people who has been supporting me during all the years. And obviously,
明天几点开台？
我
不确定明天他们几点开始，应该是中午或下午吧。
This match was really difficult because Joey is an amazing player. He played really good and.
可冠军又配部射尾喷火了，笑死！不要吧，可以换一个别的，配部古拉多。
Yeah, that strategy absolutely paid off.
第3天冠军战通常大家都会去问情报啊。
But talk us through that thought process a
或
little
是
bit.
根本就是你已经打过，你手上都有笔记的人。
After being down a game after that game 1, what do you do to mentally prepare yourself going into games 2 and games 3?
I think the main error in
配部巨魔
made the trick in turn 1.
配部巨魔电马威特别容易麻痹这样。
至少确定人家上又杀进了决赛。
对，又杀进决赛，光是这样他就已经很猛。再一次，不断的证明这一组就是这么的强力。配部铁球巨魔啊，那个铁球是托哥德马尔这样。第3场 Eric 真的打的完全没有话说，他那个到第3回合的时候，基本上等于是已经将军了。第1回合直接铁球朝着马威铁球直接换，第2回合去锁那个火猫狠化，然后第3回合对着火猫狠化，然后自己进古拉多，这完全就是抓死。到第3手出来，基本上就是将军了。
I faced both in 3 rounds in day 2. This is not a good match for me, but
我还行啦，现在其实已经醒了，但是反正4强播完这一场就没了。那个，等一下我再去吃宵夜就好了。
Playing a Spanish final is always great, so I would like to face Darwin.
应该是维伦那边现在是12点半了吧？维伦现在人在日本。不过维伦也是有周休2日的吧？
I want to say thank you
只是
to
刚刚
all
好
the
像
people
太大
who
声
has
了，
been
一直被隔
supporting
壁
me,
敲一下，
including my family.
很怕。
And
对不起。
obviously,
可能
thank
是
you
我讲话
to
太
to
大
my
声吧，
mom
我有戴耳机。
that she's not having a good time with she has cancer, so it's a difficult time in the family.
日本的那个宿舍隔音是不是都很不好？
The tournament for she.
学生宿舍那种就是一整排的那一种房子嘛，对吗？
对，一整排
Eric,
的
thank you so much. Congratulations once
日本好像很
again
多都
on
是这
making
种
it to the grand finals tomorrow.
便宜。
Casters, back to you to determine Eric's opponent.
Thank you so much, Rosemary, and just a fantastic hearing from Eric there, and what an incredible way for us to kick off that top 4.
Just an amazing match, and it was lovely to hear the words from him as well. Thinking about the matchup ahead, obviously we'll be bringing you the second of the semi-finals, and as mentioned, it's going to be Kyogre versus Kyogre, meaning that no matter what happens, our grand finals will be a weather war between Groudon and Kyogre.
It's already written, isn't it? Perfect. It's like a
Where
fairy
it's meant to
tale.
be.
Yeah, and like Eric's already talked a little bit about he's faced Kyogre, he knows how to prepare for it, but both of these players have piloted the Kyogre
那边的4强
so
是什
well
么
to get
呢？
this far into the tournament, and it's a bit of a Kyogre off in this last one, isn't it? We've got Victor, who we've already featured a couple of times today on stream, and then we've got Oliver, who is that other top 4 player, also piloting the Kyogre. So going to be interesting to see how both of these players approach this matchup. Obviously, we've seen Victor with probably, he has the double weather, so he might have a little bit more of an advantage to kind of dictate play. It'll be all about how Oliver kind of approaches that matchup.
Maybe has a little bit more flexibility if you have the option for the sun, but also for having the rain option.
有人留言说 ，Eric 应该要把努力22点在固拉多的命中上面。
So unless there's some kind of trick room shenanigans going on, then Torkoal's not going to have a happy time against that Kyogre.
No, but there is another Venusaur inclusion obviously on Victor's team as well. So he's got the Venusaur to kind of play alongside that Torkoal, and that will give the Kyogre a lot of problems. Saying that, Oliver does have access to Tornadus, which is one of the better Pokemon to have to kind of counteract Venusaur in a lot of ways, but you're going to have to try and get around the Sleep Powder, which is always going to be a threat if that sun is present on the field.
I mean, that's the thing, Tornadus and Kyogre have been such a classic combination. I think we were talking about it yesterday as well, how whenever we get into these restricted formats, people always tend to go and pick those common cores that we've practiced before just to kind of get a feel and dip their toe back into the water of a restricted format. And at the beginning, we saw a lot of Tornadus paired up with that Kyogre again, and obviously you can have another restricted Pokemon, but these two work so well together where you can go for that Tailwind Water Spout and just deal so much damage, particularly if your opponent isn't prepared for it. And I think having such an integral core like that is really nice to be able to see how, now that the meta has kind of evolved a little bit more, how it's going to play. And like you said, there's going to be a Venusaur on the opposing side. Tornadus is certainly something that Venusaur has to watch out for.
Yeah, 100%, and that's why the Tornadus works so perfectly well with that Kyogre, because it threatens that Venusaur so hard. And it's not just the fact that you could say, oh well, we'll get the Tailwind up and then we'll max the Kyogre and take advantage of that, but what happens if the Tornadus decides to go for the max? Because it can hit very hard, and there's max S-Streams or something to also support the Kyogre with speed control as well, so it's something to think about. So it's got a lot of flexibility as well.
I think Tornadus is the best friend, really, whether it wants to go for the Tailwind or the max Airstream. It's there like, I've got you in your speed control.
Besties. We'll see if it works out here in this one, as the players are just getting prepared to set up this match. I can't imagine how both of them are feeling coming into this one, knowing that one of these players is going to be advancing into the finals tomorrow.
And they've just had to watch the previous top 4 match, so they know
that
这
两组都是 Guy
Eric Rios as well. You can see some of their accolades here, and I think
所以明天是一
nice
个
these players have
盖欧卡对固拉多的对决。
Senior division, Oliver being the Oceania champion there in 2018, and Victor having senior world's top 8 in that same year as well. So no doubt they are very familiar with each other from the seniors circuit, and now in Masters, how maybe they've evolved, how their experience has grown is
左边又是盖风龟耶，盖风龟花加苍翔，然后右边是盖风苍猫土云星盖的内战，右边是晴天内战，左边是盖队内战。哦，不是，刚刚是晴天内战，现在是盖内战。
It doesn't decide to Dynamax, then it is going to be susceptible to.
抱歉，裂空座的灵压已经消失了。裂空座是谁？
It has been intimidated, and it's not really putting that much pressure onto something like the Kyogre this turn. Although you can get some respectable damage off with something like a Behemoth Blade, it's not really doing the damage that you want to kind of impact something on Oliver's side of the field.
Tornado's going for the protect in the face of the fake out, and you know, very wise play here from Victor, just double protect.
先做一个双手。
That fake out from the Incineroar. It was going down into the Tornadus, but of course to no avail as Kyogre goes for the water.
但他这个开局会有个问题，就是等一下盖奥卡冲起极巨，他其实是吃不下这个伤害的，除非他这边双换。
Yeah, and that's what you mean. You know, you want to.
他常想换妙蛙花，但你就算拿妙蛙花去挡这个巨水，可能也是不好受。
You do have the Tornadus here, where it doesn't have to worry about the fake out this turn. It can launch a hurricane.
高卡在这边，右边的高卡可以直接冲起极巨。
Maybe try and position something like your Venusaur if you've got it in the back onto the field. It's not gonna get knocked out from that big power.
需要绿色的神手，没错，轰雷金刚星。
Instead, it looks like with the dive ball, I'm assuming this is going to be the Kyogre going for the Dynamax up on Oliver's side. So instead of going for those water spouts,
所以第二手冲高卡极巨完全没有任何问题。
If you're going for those max geysers, they're going to be still able to hit really, really powerfully. Victor is going to be going straight for the Behemoth Blade with the Zacian, going to be able to find its mark down onto the opposing Kyogre. Obviously, dealing a little bit more damage because it's in its Dynamax form, but Kyogre being able to resist it and neutral the.
哦，他要塞这个混乱。
as impressive as it should be.
没有混乱。 巨水超想掰， 然
然
后火猫狠化，切风云进来，风云进来的话就是表示他有手语。 没有的话，他也可以再来一个顺风对开。
Getting the most out of that turn as well, and getting rid of a big threat on Victor's side of the field, and that's Zacian. The Incineroar now getting that parting shot off onto the Tornadus, which is.
刚刚有替身的话，打替身是正解，没有错。
As well, which is also going to be really helpful to Oliver for that Kyogre just to have that longevity to stick around on the field and get more of these max geysers off.
Exactly, and it gives Oliver the opportunity to bring that Zacian in from the back as well.
选择把苍响拉进来的话，那风云是没有手语的，只是这样子。 左边这边补位 ，Victor 这边补位进场的应该也要是盖欧卡。你用盖欧卡去看盖欧卡比较合理。然后这边可以做一个顺风加，哎，为什么这么快就要打脸我？
Well, Venusaur has now jumped onto the field in the rain, though it's still going to be sitting in a little bit of a difficult situation. Should be able to take a max geyser, however, but I wonder what the last Pokemon is for Victor in this situation. We haven't, had it revealed as of yet. It could indeed be that Kyogre, but if it was something like, for example, the Torkoal, bringing that weather change in, means that Venusaur's going to have its speed doubled by its chlorophyll ability, and then it's in a position to go for.
威伦，还是你要用聊天室打字的？我把那个聊天室的 DC 关掉好了，因为我现在才想到你那边在晚上半夜那个宿舍，真的可能会被骂，抱歉，害到你。我先把那个语音切掉啊，我把聊天室的那个 Google 小姐开起来，你可以用打字。 维伦人在日本，所以他那个宿舍隔音不是很好。 这边很尴尬的是，你妙花打谁都不会死的。哦，没有，大概在射程了。 Oliver's very powerful Pokemon here, getting the residual damage up is going to
play into Victor's favor towards.
大概在射程的话
，if you do have that Torkoal in the back, you don't really worry too much about the Zacian either because you've got a way once you've taken that Kyogre down to dictate whether bring in the Torkoal and then deal with the Zacian quite handily.
对。 就是你冲盖冲掉之后，他苍响对面的苍响巨兽斩直接把你的妙花抓掉，这样也不会很好受啊。不过这样子的好处是，尾盘这边进来的盖欧卡，他可以。哦，好，他就是没有带盖欧卡，好吧。
刚刚隔壁一直敲我墙壁吓死。
怕爆。
Very slow. There's no way that this little turtle is outspeeding these two Pokemon.
主播说这边进龟是好的，是没有错了。
WW 花就这样被一刀砍了哭啊！
Some damage off onto it because I think that's a big key here. Try and get damage onto it, but you can't ignore the Tornadus as well. Does have access potentially.
我觉得他带这4只就很尴尬。
Damage both of these Pokemon in the sun for big damage.
没有带盖的话也没办法。
加油，花没看龟。
而对面后面还有一只火猫，其实这样子基本上就很尴尬。这边星星一定收回去换火猫进来，然后苍响会打一个守住。
That damage might be quite important to put it in range for something like the Heat Wave in the sun to take the knockout on the Zacian, but it depends on the item that the Tornadus has got as well.
Rillaboom switching out, bringing the Incineroar in. The Intimidate's really not going to be too beneficial here, but I think the critical thing is Oliver just applying that fake up pressure constantly. You know, Incineroar's one of the Pokemon that isn't going to worry obviously about taking any fire type moves in this situation and can apply that pressure again with the fake out going forward. Zacian is wisely going to protect in the face of the Torkoal.
然后等一下又是一个马威进攻的回合。
Something after the Tornadus has gone for the Heat Wave, it is revealed there. Going to be able to connect down onto the opposing Incineroar, but really doing minimal damage here, even though the sun is in the sky. As Torkoal goes for the Burning Jealousy, doesn't find his mark though into that protect. Is going to be, of course, able to deal a little bit to the opposing Incineroar, but really only a little bit.
但煤炭龟好像不是很好杀，没有错。这个回合变成是 Victor 这里可以双手了，他双手会没有问题。
If you want, you're going to have to reposition that Incineroar. How do you reposition the Incineroar with a parting shot? Because if you do that,
双手的话，那
我归来也很难了，盖打的比布快好多。
The slowest thing, regardless, or do you make a hard switch? You know, it's very difficult at this point, and because it's so defensively well built, it's going to be hard for that Zacian to break it down without taking a big attack at the same time.
哦。
Yeah, it's difficult.
龟没手，那这样就会被惩罚。没有，他打得很保守，他是1 by 1打。我觉得这里好像应该要全力击火龟耶。他急着想杀风云，因为后面的星星需要去处理风云。但风云这里单手的话
，Protect Burning Jealousy Power 用。
But I think that if you're Oliver, you've stalled out the Tailwind, you now just need to stall out the Sun, and that's where your Pokemon maybe have more of a chance to deal some damage.
Yeah, there is an opening here for the Zacian to potentially take down the Tornadus here because with that Tailwind ending it now is going to outspeed it, so you can potentially get a Behemoth Blade onto the Tornadus, take it down, and then just have the 3 versus 1, which makes it a lot easier to kind of manage. And if you've got something like high horsepower on the Rillaboom,
在 Oliver 这里大概只能狠化加巨兽斩了。
that way.
And that's true as well. High horsepower would be a great answer to that Torkoal, but you might want to get a little bit of.
哦，风云想要抓一个2手失败。啊，苍响在这里居然打守住。哦，他要用火猫去杀风云，也可以，这样可以。这样的话 ，Oliver 会赢。
3 Pokemon. Burning Jealousy going to come out, obviously just going to do that minimal amount of damage onto the imposing Incineroar. But Oliver, I think, really does have the.
因为后面还有一只满血的星。
At this point, if the Incineroar and the Zacian get KO'd, as long as they can deal.
怎么说呢？就是差在他没有用盖了。他如果用盖的话，刚刚不要进花，直接进盖的话，其实他的赢面是比较大。Victor 的赢面是比较大的。
It's less of a risk because you can reduce that special attack stat and then get the Rillaboom in. Without the sun on the field, it makes it a little less risky.
Sacred Sword connecting down onto Torkoal does almost 50%, as Incineroar does indeed go for
这里
that
很
party
花
shot. I know you said it was that little bit risky, but it looks like
星星
Oliver
进来要
wants to- he thinks it's
吃
worth
这个热风
the
伤害
situation,
会
reducing
不太
that
舒服
special
就
attack
是
as
了
well. It is the last turn of Sun, so Sun is in the sky for this moment, going into the next
我感觉好像
turn,
下一个回合再
if
狠
Oliver
化
is
会
able to
比较
survive
好一点，
then it's gonna
就
be
是至少
现在真的
龟不会
差很多。
龟不会吃到那个晴天的火的伤害，但被狠化了，只有这样的话好像也
风云的
无所谓。
伤害要抓掉火猫才会有机会。
是。
You know that the Incineroar is a great switch in. You've got the opportunity to just go for a fake out here, and you can see how much the Sacred Sword did to the Torkoal anyway. So you only need a couple of those to hit really from this point on, especially with the grassy terrain leaving the field now. And I think that lack of recovery for the Torkoal is making it even more difficult for Victor to kind of eke out the kind of last few turns in this, and it looks like Oliver is going to be able to lock this one up.
Yeah, Oliver taking game one here and is only one game away from getting into the grand finals. Victor, it's going to have to be a case of adjusting going into that game two to try and push for a game three in order to have a stake at trying to get that champion title. But I mean, there was so much in that game one. I think for me the critical thing was the fact
Game one 只能说他就是没有带盖输在这里。
that Victor then had, and unfortunately, yes, you know, Victor was able to do the KO against the Kyogre, but at the cost of his Venusaur.
看起来那个龟蛮可能是 HB 的。
No, I think you're.
我是不会想在盖内战的情况下带龟了。你就在晴天状态下，你被那个巨水喷一发，还是会死去，你知道吗？
The Kyogre was kind of free just to pick it up there and was left way unpunished. So I think that's something that maybe Victor has to keep in mind when going into this next match, because I think you don't want to lose it so freely.
HD 啦 ，HD 应该不会有 HB 的龟，除非他完全要打普奇。通常要练 H 的话，D 会练比较多。
Where you can pressure it, maybe you know something like Venusaur to lead in and have the Torkoal in the back, so you can still kind of put that pressure on from the start rather than have to worry about switching in on a Kyogre.
要不然就单纯 HC 也是有可能，因为他 B 不练就已经160。
This is a really intense part of the competition, and you need to be able to win your next game to keep pushing forward to try and stay in the competition. And those adjustments are going to be interesting because, as we saw, Oliver was very dominant with that Kyogre, and it is a Kyogre versus Kyogre battle here. But there certainly was really just the one Kyogre that shone in that game one.
Yeah, and you expect, you know, you're thinking oh, it's really going to be tough for Oliver to kind of take this game. There's a Venusaur there. He hasn't got a way to really kind of dictate the weather as well as what Victor has.
假设他刚刚
phenomenally well
是盖欧卡进来，然后盖欧卡急剧冲起来去抓掉。
不过这两组上去感觉都被 Renia Sun 抓死。
对，都不好受。
I think if he does that again in this next game.
就是他刚刚如果是不要先进喵啊，他有带盖欧卡的话，先进盖欧卡，然后顺风巨水去抓掉苍响，那对方会补位进星星，那顺风可以，顺风的话应该是他的风也会在那回合掉，所以最后会变成是星星、盖欧卡残血跟顺风中的盖欧卡和 妙蛙花的对局，好像不会非常好受了，但至少会比刚刚还要好一点。
话说，宝可梦这样转播直播比赛是没问题的吗？
没问题的样子，我们之前也都这样转播。
potentially give Venusaur a second option for being able to get nice and speedy. So possibly Oliver maybe wants to find a way to have speed control on his side of the field as well, just to be prepared for it.
Yeah, well, he's got a couple of options here. He has got the tornadoes of his own that he could bring to the match and kind of match the tailwinds if he wants.
他如果有问题的话，那个官方会直接寄版权通知之类的，或就是反正他就会寄一些声明给我，但从来都没有收过，所以应该是没有问题。
It's a little bit risky though if Victor decides to go down the route of Tornadoes Kyogre against something like Landorus. It's not the best kind of thing to have out at that day and time. So, you know, probably the Tornadus is the one if you were wanting to match the kind of speed control from Victor's side of the field, is to bring your own Tornadus and try and match it that way. But I don't think Oliver really struggled too much.
官方要搞的话，那就没有办法。但是我是觉得他们自己应该也是希望。
很多实况主会转播一边自己讲评，
真的，
应该可以 James 也在播。带道具不知道是啥。
我不确定刚刚那个被巨兽斩完之后直接巨草下去的盖。那个是什么道具？感觉好像不是背心，因为我觉得背心好像是可以耐的。
Pokemon that do not want to take fire type attacks, but I did find the Burning Jealousy a little underwhelming in that match. It just wasn't able to do the damage output, and obviously wasn't able to catch any potential burns at all, which would have been great from Victor's perspective, just to weaken the attacking presence of Oliver's Pokemon, particularly that Zacian. If you're able to get a burn on the Zacian, it can really give Victor a strong advantage.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the main aim of that move. You know, you want to burn.
有看到 James 在鼓起锅。
Like the Rillaboom as well, to kind of protect your own Kyogre, if possible, if you are bringing it. So yeah, I think taking advantage of that is going to be the big thing for him. But you are right, it was underwhelming, especially after that parting shot. It was just not doing the damage that Victor needed it to do.
Well, Pokemon trainers, I hope you are ready for this game 2 of our Masters Top 4 Division semi-final. Combinations, here we go. Classic combinations.
这里直接开龟花，这样好吗？因为这种的风云通常是会挂手语的吧。
Huge for Victor, really good call here to predict maybe the Kyogre coming out. I'm going to lead with Torkoal.
这个如果
好像193马力，应该不是速维吧？
Tornadus' Hurricanes aren't as threatening, they're not as accurate, and the Venusaur in a great position to just go for that Gigantamax and get that G-Max Fine Lash into the Kyogre and start that residual chip damage.
And
I like the look at this turn 1 as well from Victor. Getting the Torkoal out of there, it's done what it needed to do, set the sun, and you don't want it to be sitting there primed to take something like
收归合理，因为他需要守住他的晴天，他也没有其他开晴天的方法，手语就直接炸开来哦。
明天才打决赛会有情报透露的问题吗？
不会啊，因为到上面的玩家他们基本上都是知道对方的情报啊。到8强就已经是几乎你8强选手几乎都已经对过了。
Yeah, this is the thing with the Kyogre going for the max here. It's quite brave from Oliver. He does want to get that tailwind up now.
他没有开手语，他先开顺。
Go for that max guys are probably into that Torkoal slot, but because the sun is still in effect, Venusaur still fast, they're going to be able to get that G-Max Fine Lash.
这个伤害看起来又像是背心，所以他刚刚那个感觉是抽高，因为你看这一下他打的伤害刚好是刚刚那个巨兽斩打差不多也是这个伤害。不过下一发就会死了，因为那个灭草会扣他一点血量。
The next turn, because Victor protecting it, that turn 1 taking it out, knowing that the guys that could come out from the Kyogre, so he's got the ability to dictate the weather this next turn.
Exactly, Lee, you called it perfectly there. The turns really can play themselves out. Tornadus can switch out, bring that Torkoal back on, because as we've just seen, despite the tailwind on Oliver's side of the field, when the sun's in the sky, Venusaur is still faster than that Kyogre. And particularly with the residual damage that the G-Max Fine Lash has just given that Kyogre, one more of those G-Max moves into the Kyogre and Sun will pick up the KO. But you also don't need the Sun when you have a tailwind. You know already when that speed is doubled up that you are going to be faster. But Tornadus on the opposing side,
然后妙花吃了一个抗飞骨，然后看这个混乱有没有过。哦，这个要害了。
Outside of the Gigantamax with that critical hit, but thankfully the extra HP allowing Venusaur to survive it, come from 50% of its HP remaining and destroy the Kyogre on the opposing side of the battlefield.
Yeah, that's a huge turn for Victor. The critical hit a little bit unfortunate there, taking a bit more damage than you would have expected to, but still the return from this turn from Victor is huge. Able to get rid of the Kyogre before it's had a big impact like it did in that game 1. Fair enough, Tornadus has taken a lot of damage, but it has
新先进来。
And like you say, because of that speed tier.
后手是苍响，那现在 Oliver 这里不好受了。因为 Victor 这里的顺风晚了一个回合开，所以他会有一个顺风的优势。 但是这个回合来说 ，Victor 他是有可能会双掉的，所以他赶快把他风云收回来，盖天气，这样暴风就有可能会卖，然后那个星星拿龟没什么方法。哦，再加上一个巨火。
Not enough to be able to pick up the KO. Looks like the assault vest on that. Rillaboom is the item choice. Torkoal is able.
哦，这边也有被抓到，他直接对着这里打一个酸玛丽，然后龟是回血果，大树果回血。
It's a really nice play there from Victor to not only reduce the accuracy of that hurricane by getting the sun back onto the field, but also
那这边应该是下一个回是 Oliver 的顺风的最后一个回合，然后现在这边妙花花得到了晴天加顺风的 boost， 所以他会是场上最快的。那星星虽然可以滑踢，但滑踢打谁都没什么屁用。这一局 Victor 应该是稳了。
暴风卖了，哇！
Obviously, we're nowhere near the end of it at this point. We're kind of moving into the second phase of this game where the Dynamax turns are over for Victor, and Oliver is now in a position where he needs to be able to.
这里渡火加气象球双杀就可以了。后面一只应该绝对是苍响。
Yeah, that is an option here where you can just.
对，他需要开一个守住，把那个把 Victor 的顺风也拖完，然后下一个回合再自己开一次顺风。
Yes, and I actually really like this play here from Victor because targeting down into that Tornadus, you might have needed the double up from the Burning Jealousy here as well. Burning Jealousy, as you see, completely just gets rid of that Rillaboom.
这个要害无所谓吧
but possibly needed the Burning Jealousy plus the Weather Ball into that Tornadus
要害无所谓
just to kind of remove it and get the double KO there.
然后他想
晴天暴风意外，挥发我的超人。
But as well, you know, the knockoff coming out from the Rillaboom, something that we were excited to see yesterday, but as the Cobra Berry had already been consumed on the Venusaur, it's going to be at a weakened damage output for that knockoff.
Yeah, and if the last Pokemon is the Zacian, yeah, it's going to have a tough time. Tornadus can set up the Tailwind to, you know, put the Zacian ahead of the Venusaur, so it's not threatened so much by that Weather Ball. Pick up the knockout there, but you're going to have to worry this next turn about.
然后因为龟的血量还是太健康了，那这边其实也不需要再抢那个顺风，因为现在也无所谓了。
Whether or not Oliver actually goes for an attack here, or maybe kind of just goes for protect and tries to attack. Potentially with the Tornadus to remove the Venusaur, it could be an option.
因为你顺风巨斩妙花就算死掉，你还是吃渡火。这一把是确定 GG 了，后面还有一只满血的苍响还没进来。
At the same time, like you said, if you don't protect the Zacian, that Burning Jealousy is going to be able to burn against it. And Victor still has a whole team of Pokemon waiting in the back, including a Tornadus of his very own that he can bring into the Tailwind later on. Tailwind on Oliver's side does get set up once again, but Venusaur's still incredibly speedy thanks to the sun in the sky too. And will go for that Weather Ball into the Tornadus and remove it from play, leaving Oliver with just the Zacian left in front of both these Pokemon capable of dealing out Fire-type moves. We also know.
等一下 ，Victor 的顺风还有一回合吗？我刚刚没有看到顺风有没有停，我以为刚刚顺风停了。这个回合完结，确定一下。
Yeah, and now we see the Burning Jealousy connect. It's going to do considerable amount of damage because it is a single target, and it should. Tailwind pittering out there.
Yeah, Tailwind burning out there, but
所以他刚刚那个妙蛙花还是比苍响快。这个回合他 Victor 的顺风才停，但就无所谓。
It's going to be interesting to see which one is going to come out and possibly clean up this game, particularly if you want to get the speed up and it's something like the Kyogre, you could go for something like a powerful Water Spout, but we're just going to see it locked in.
前面的资源交换下，那个 Oliver 那边已经。对，没有手语很亏啊。有手语的话，其实第一回合就可以压烂了。我觉得配盖的风手语好像蛮重要的。
And it's going to come down to one game. They're one game apiece. They've made some phenomenal adjustments. And in that game too, I mean, it really was that turn 0. We certainly jumped out of our seats. We could hear everyone in the hall. So excited to see the double weather come out. And I think the fact that because that tour call was so slow that the sun was able to be in the sky, Victor was just in such a dominant position straight from the get-go.
为啥他狗会妒火没烧？
那个是要当回合升能力才会烧啊。他刚刚早就已经过了他那个升能力的回合啦。甚至你烧下去，对方跳弱阵，他都不会烧起来。你那个妒火打到弱阵，然后对方弱阵发动，他是不会烧伤的。
And of course, as well, the little tour call getting up to such mischief. I mean, it was so mischievous, we kind of overlooked the fact that the burning jealousy.
进场跳1A 不算当回合。
If the Zacian had hard switched in and got the boost, then it would have been able to get the burn. But if it's just come in and the turn hasn't really started, then that burn isn't going to activate. And that was just something that, you know.
他如果是他进场的那个回合算吧。
过了哦。
对，只是他刚刚不是在进场的时候烧的吧？
When it comes in mid-game, then it doesn't apply the same as it does. But still, Burning Jealousy doing a significant amount of damage in that end game there, and it was going to be able to close it up. You saw about 50% damage in the sun there, and the Zacian would have found it very difficult to close out with the amount of Pokemon Victor had left at that last turn.
Exactly, and here we go, Game 3. The winner of this set
那像那种跳加速特性的怎么判定？效果错过了 X。
对，效果错过。加速特性是回合完结才跳啊，他一定烧不到啊。
进场算。
是进场算。加速特性是回合完结才会算，他回合完结才加速，你那个是烧一定是。 比他先动的，所以你一定烧不到加速特性。
感觉这两队对上 Renia Song 都难打。
不能说完全没有机会了，但是我是觉得两边看起来都不好过巨魔，巨魔会控得很开心。
Victor's side not going to be as happy in the rain in this situation. It wants to be able to get the sun up and apply a lot of pressure to that opposing Kyogre, particularly as Oliver's in a situation where Tornadus isn't in the field.
加速是回合结束，所以不会烧。
对，时机错过。我回合完结才触发的，你不能断我，你不能连锁。
Yeah, definitely. But we're going to see Oliver just retreat the Kyogre this turn and opt to bring the Rillaboom onto the field, wants to preserve that Kyogre and not let it go down as easy.
在花面前静心，这也是
Exactly, Rillaboom jumping into the fray, bringing the grassy terrain onto the field and applying a fake out pressure into that next turn as well. But we're going to see another
花直接冲击极具。
it's going to be that Venusaur because Victor wants to be able to apply that pressure, and the residual damage as well has been so critical. So Gigantamax Venusaur taking to the stage, and it's nice in a way that the way in the sense that
渡火是主阶发动，加速是结束阶段。
是。聊天室逐渐游戏王。
484提前恭喜 Renia Song 又夺冠了。
还不好说，这样可能是在利奇。因为就算队伍象限优，对方也是有操作失误的可能，那也是有可能被屌抓。 可能这一组他已经练过很多次对 Renia 上了，然后有我们还没有看到的解，所以现在要说夺冠还太早了，只能说 Renia 上表面上看起来还是比较优开。
coming in to utilize being
可以
able
等
to
巨魔配
boost
布
up
了 X。
some of the speed, but then at the end of the day, you need a Zacian or a Kyogre, otherwise that means Victor is left as restricted at home. So it's good to see the Zacian jump into the frame, getting that Intrepid Sword boost up as well, getting onto the field unintimidated will be beneficial going.
加油啊！这边两边都是盖仓最后的零压了，安安。 美旭是刚下班回家吗？那个天气球巨水直接把火猫带走，但火猫不知道是他没有意识到这边可能会被抓掉，还是怎样。这个抓掉火猫对 Victor 来说是非常有利的。
明天几点打冠军战？莱特古拉多佩服
明天几点打？我不确定耶，我等一下。
那就公园双神选一支佩服吧。
看一下哦。
对手回合上龟是波仙。
I do want to know what the last remaining Pokemon for Victor is though, because depending on which Pokemon is going to be beside that Venusaur, it gives Venusaur a couple of options. If it is something
其实芊芊有把时辰打在社团。
作为在玩家
，neither Zacian or the Rillaboom is going to want to take one of those.
Not at this point, yeah, and it's a great opportunity to pull the Torkoal onto the field if you do have it in the back, and like you say, launch that Max Flare into either one of the
妙蛙
slots
巨水
here.
特效好神奇 XDDD， 一定支持蓝色的队伍。
下午4点开始，所以我们可以下午4点
这边抓掉火猫好用，
开始转播。
他想对面会窃龟巨火星星。
Knowing it has that Assault Vest item due to the damage it was taking previously, you might want to give it a little bit more chip damage before you go for something.
我觉得我是他也会先去抓虎猫，因为星星基本上对花是完全没有任何一点威胁性的。
15IC 4点下午直播，
是下午4点。
Going to be able to target down into that opposing Rillaboom, and I really like this play. Removes the Rillaboom from being threatening with that high horsepower in any way against that opposing Zacian, and allowing the Zacian on the opposing side.
可是比赛时间就不确定，因为要打勾宝可全 PTCG。
Just to throw an intimidate down on the Zacian, or maybe the opportunity for this Torkoal, we will have to see.
Yeah, it's a big play there from Victor because
应该是同时进行吧。每个部门同时进行，他直播的那个部门也都是同时分开的，就是同时进行，然后分开播这样子，他不会全部都丢在同一个频道。我刚才点的时候，他有好几个。
他的气象球真的好用。
不过这里花集聚没了，然后 Oliver 的集聚还没缴，然后苍响也掉了。那剩下龟花加上后面应该是风云或不确定这一次有没有盖的情况下。其实还有机会哦，那个盖的巨水可以直接穿掉煤炭龟。那这里要看碎粉有没有中了。
It protects his Zacian a little bit further with the rain up on the field. You're just going to be able to have to take an attack from the Venusaur.
花又撑完3回了。
碎粉有中的话不好说。
Which you know, if it takes it now, then it's not ideal. But the other problem is this
他火猫
which just comes straight out into that.
好，那碎就
第4只是火猫吗？妈，火猫。
哦，对，他收回去了吗？因为上面没有显示，我忘记了。是火猫吗？可是他这一场不是就是龟花开吗？
我刚才看官网，明天只有一个直播。
明天只有一个直播。
恭喜，讲了就会中。
It's going to be difficult for the Torkoal to really whittle it down though. So between the Incineroar,
这火猫，那其实还不好说，因为高卡是有可能会一回醒的。这就是晴天妙蛙花碎粉先手的问题之处。
I mean, this is the thing. The Kyogre can be critical.
不要睡最大，就都还有机会。而且就算睡最大好了，他只要聚水。
Not a lot. I mean, you can parting shot.
没有，睡最大的话，巨水好像出不来，但是他只要喷水有出去，就还是有机会。
Maybe going down to Burning Jealousy here, but just going for that protect just to stall out this fake out potentially coming into that slot. But
好，
you
继续
probably
睡。
have to go for the parting shot, and it depends what options the
开场是花火猫猜，
开场是花火猫，我忘记了。我刚刚在看小图。你看那个这两只火系在盖奥卡面前有够无力，你就等他，你就祈祷他不要醒来，一醒来你就要崩盘。这一回合醒来的可能性又更高了。
I mean, if you're Oliver, you might just need to kind of protect your Kyogre. There's nothing in the Dynamax form that it's threatened by, for example. Incineroar Torkoal really can't touch it. Even out of the
我看 Renia 上的弱点就是碎粉了，蛮合理的。但是我觉得这里 Victor 崩掉的可能性是蛮高的。对。
Even if it's asleep. With its double HP stat, it's incredibly bulky.
解不掉盖啊！
Incineroar takes a huge amount of damage from the Zacian here. As Kyogre
好睡好睡满。
the third turn of sleep.
Yeah, and the Kyogre, like you mentioned, you know, it's going to be
好刺激，无耻金鱼真的很无耻。
好，这里火猫也兑换掉喽。那请问剩下一只煤炭龟要怎么打满血的盖欧卡？他下一回合是一定醒来。
龟在第3回合再补哈欠，恭喜右边。
剩一滴血，笑死。是，我觉得应该是要恭喜右边了。直接喷水。
It's not going to be nearly enough damage. Kyogre's going to wake up on this next turn, and Incineroar really just
盖欧卡队还是要相信盖欧卡。
是，盖欧卡队。
电马威了。
If it's going for those body presses, it's not going to be
睡
enough.
好睡满，
睡好睡满也无所谓，因为剩下的就两只麒麟天队。喷水。
就只能用火猫慢慢骂盖。哈欠大地之力。
你基本上火猫就是刚刚那边是一定是死的。哦，有合欠，有合欠的话，那还有机会。有合欠会熬赢。合欠守住。
光粉龟哦。
那这样会赢，这样会赢，这样可以恭喜 Victor。那可以看到这个龟应该是 HD 的，没有错。好，晴天没了。那这个扑奇可以耐，下一个回合有机会会醒来。Oliver 的机会在他，如果是这个回合睡一个回合，下一个回合醒来就有机会。
又睡又睡。
哦，看起来这个普及伤害不够，那他还有2个机会。哦，醒了，那没了。恭喜 Oliver。这个就是最后2个火系看着盖欧卡，没办法啊。我觉得最后还是要回到盖欧卡。
又睡了又睡吗？
笑死！
冠亚战门票居然是运气 XD。
冠亚战门票其实这游戏一直都是需要运气的啊。你没有运气是赢不了的。
88888。
而且刚刚那个 Oliver， 你看那个普及的伤害，他其实蛮稳。
对，煤炭龟，我不想努力了。
煤炭龟打盖欧卡真的太难了啦！说实话，火猫加煤炭龟打那个满血的盖欧卡，基本上是没了。睡眠载下去，笑死！
晴天玩家下去啦 X， 刚刚电大都睡满了，已经睡饱啦。不相信盖的后果，盖欧卡
不相信盖的后果，真的。
这场好看。
我想一下哦。
明天没有睡可以对策了 X， 拜托明天干掉晴天队，双手合十，双手合十，双手合十。
我觉得很难诶。我觉得很难。你仔细想想，他的构筑这一组的构筑，他的盖没有
RS 的剧情吗
？Oliver 的风没有手语，然后他的草系是星星，对上喷火龙是完全没有威力的那种，然后他没有办法有效的阻止巨魔的控场。其实我觉得 Oliver 比起 比起 Victor 他会更难打 Renia 上，但反正鹿死谁手就还不知道，看看会不会有什么惊人的操作吧。好了，那我们今天的那个转播也就转播到这里。明天下午4点开始嘛，那我们就明天下午4点。那反正他会跟世界大赛一样，他会从那个 Junior 组开始。对，土云是个突破口。但是土云也是你控速要控好，因为土云你是会吃铁球的控速的，所以你控速一定要。我觉得很难，说真的，我觉得很难。对，因为那个巨魔铁球丢过来，你真的会很痛苦。
不管拉冠军该换队了，
冠军该换队了。
相信该一直喷，一直喷。晚安。
好了，我们今天先播到这样，晚安。
被巨魔控烂，海王神盖欧卡，我才。
明天再转播决赛。
晚安。
Yeah, that's the thing. It's really difficult when your Pokemon are sleeping. You're just trying to will them to wake up, but particularly taking those 3 sleep turns, I think Kyogre maybe learned his lesson.
明天转播决赛，白这个礼拜要继续级别还是退坑了？
我觉得好像还是应该要爬一下级别，但好想退坑哦。
88888，
笑死！好啦，先这样。
An all-Spain final, but not to be the case. And I think it's time to hear from our second finalist, our winner of that amazing match, Oliver Eskelin.
Thank you so much, Lee and Lou. I am here with our second grand finalist, Oliver Eskelin. Congratulations! You must be so relieved that your Kyogre woke up.
Yeah, I mean, that was a emotional roller coaster right there with the sleep powder. You know, it hitting and then giving the